Yes. Okay. Maybe I couldn't. Maybe this is better. Tell me if you can hear me. If you're watching this live, you're watching a recording. You don't need to do that. All right. Where was I? Nothing. Okay. So can you hear me or can you not hear me? I have 4 people on. Okay, I will assume that you can hear me. I did not change any settings on anything, but we will see. We will see how it goes. One of my cameras started doing something really odd. It's over the table here. I'm going to switch to it in a moment. All of a sudden, it's putting out settings on the HDMI output. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know why it started doing this all of a sudden, but I'll have to troubleshoot it at some other time. It started doing this as I was setting up. Okay. Before I start talking about optics, the booze. Oh, excellent! So sounds good now. Thank you, sir. Guess the booze contest is back. There's the glass. There's the booze in here. It's also in a bottle behind the black curtain. Okay. And whoever gets closest will get a Dark Lord of Optics t-shirt, which I'm not wearing right now, but I like this t-shirt, so I'm keeping it. So just so that you know, I'm pouring the booze. I happen to like flasks, so I have a lot of different flasks. I figured I might as well use different ones. This is an alcoholic liquor. It is not wine, and it is not the same thing I was drinking last time. That's all the hints I'm going to give you, and you guys can take it from there. All right. So what is on my plate, and what are the somewhat interesting things I found lately? I'll switch to the overhead camera. I got to figure out this output business. So one of the things I've been looking at a lot lately is some small pieces of gear. My setup went completely haywire. I don't know what happened here. There we go. From a company called DeFi Gear. That's a newish company. And I like these kind of simpler products sometimes. Well, not necessarily simple. They just look simple. But that make my shooting experience better. What I have from these guys is a couple of different M-LOK to Arca Swiss plates that I use on my M-LOK equipped rifles. There are 2 different lengths. I'll put them back on my handguard. I've used both. I actually slightly prefer the shorter one. It takes less space on my AR handguards. It works well. What is arguably more interesting from these guys are these adjustment levers, kind of a ratcheting one for the a Magpul bipod, and a slightly more conventional one for the Atlas. And I've been using these 2 quite a bit, and it's much easier for me to shift the tension in the bipod without losing my shooting position with this or with this than with the way the regional adjustment works. So that was a small but meaningful change to what I do. Something that showed up just today is a new Brownell's MPO 1:8x24 scope. No real impressions yet. The optics looks quite nice. The reticle is very usable, but I'll do a video through the scope video and we'll take a look. Nice Japanese 1:8x24 second focal plane scope. And one of the things I want to talk about in a little bit more length is the wrap up on the Leica 5-30x56 PRS scope that I've been torturing for quite some time. I need to send it back to Leica, so I want to wrap up with it before I go and generally sort of touch onto some of the high-end rifle scopes. All right. That out of the way, let's talk a little bit about high-end precision rifle scopes. If you have questions, start piling them up. Toward the second half of the live cast, I will address, or my guests will address, all of the questions that pop up to the best of our ability. Okay, for a little bit of lubrication, and let's rock. Okay, so what has happened with comparatively high-end precision rifle scopes in a couple of years, a little bit less, since I last did my fairly thorough overview? And not a ton, but there are some new things happening. One of them was a Leica going in with their PRS rifle scope. Leica caught a little bit of flack here and there because the scope has some mechanical assemblies and stuff from Japan, but the optics are reworked by Leica. And from the beginning, I liked the scope. The original reticle I looked at, something called the PRB reticle, I did like a ton. The reticle on this one is a much simpler L ballistic reticle that I like quite a bit. At first glance, it looked the scope looked commensurate for the price. The turrets were good, everything tracked, it was well built. Like it doesn't make crap, right? But it didn't. It wasn't clear to me where the scope fits, right? So it's close to the 3K range where you have the Minox ZP5, and then goes head to head with some US Optics and Night Force Attacker and all those. And it wasn't worse than the competition, wasn't necessarily better. And what I look for in many of these designs is to try to figure out what is the standout feature, right? What is so special about this? And I'm spoiled, right? I'm a snob. I shoot with tangents and marches and stuff like that. But they are more expensive scopes, right? And now the Leica is a little bit under 3K, I think. A lot of stuff that I shoot is in the 4K plus range, and I'm very fortunate I can do that, but may not always be a fair comparison. Some things you can only figure out if you spend a significant amount of time with a particular product, and this is what sort of happened with Leica. The more I used the PRS scope, the more it grew on me, which was sort of an interesting thing. It's one of the ways to see if the optical system is well designed is to spend a significant. My nose is itching. I apologize. Is it to spend a significant amount of time looking through a scope? And what you are monitoring in many ways is whether you are able to maintain your visual acuity for an extended period of time, because it's not natural for us to be looking with one eye only. And that creates fatigue and makes your brain tired to a certain degree. It is also a little bit unnatural for us to be staring at something for a prolonged period of time. We're not really designed for that. So if you do end up having to do that, you will find yourself in a situation where you are picking up eye fatigue or brain fatigue or combination of the two at a pretty decent rate. And your visual acuity changes. It really diminishes fairly rapidly. And you start getting into the high, and these are the kind of seemingly small differences that start separating different brands from each other a little bit. And this is where it turned out the Leica really, really excelled. As I kept using the scope, my visual acuity stayed very consistent for a very long time. The only scope that I use routinely that was better than Leica in this regard is a tangent theta, and that's because of how tangent treats contrast. And even then, not by much. Leica image remained nice and contrasty and sharp, and I was able to use it for prolonged observation longer than most other, even fairly high-end scopes. Like I said, of the ones I used in this regard, was only really bested by the tangent, which is no small feat, really. Okay. And that is a kudos to Leica Optics people who reworked this optical system, but it is a really, really easy scope to use for any length of time. Aside from that, this is the second one that I've looked at, and aside from certain limitations of the reticles, I have found really nothing to complain about. Honestly, the configuration that I like, so that's the one that I have here, and the one with the L ballistic reticle, and I have a through the scope video on my channel. You're more than welcome to go take a look when you have a chance. It is a simple, it's a non-3 reticle. It has 0.2 milliradian holes on a horizontal, 0.5 on the vertical, and it's designed to be used together with the elevation turret. All right, so the normal mode, operating mode for this type of a scope is to dial for elevation and hold for wind, and that's how I used it, and it worked really well. The turrets are not locking, but they're fairly stiff. I am not likely to make any accidental adjustments. The way the turret caps, I designed, they have these little levers of sorts to aid in removing it. I was absolutely convinced that after a few months of use, and I did this, I opened it up quite many times, right? After a few months of use, the silly levers will fall off, etc. They did not budge. The scope into the normal use, and I wasn't always kind to it, but I wasn't trying to destroy it or anything like that. Nothing broke, nothing became loose. The turrets broke in a little bit. The clicks got slightly better with use, but they were very decent to start with. Nice tactile feel, good sound. No real issues. That by itself is not bad, but optically, the real standout feature for me is how easy this scope is to look through and to use for an extended period of time. That was a little bit of a revelation. It's not. There are some rifle scopes out there that are absolutely exceptional, but the image, while very sharp, looks harsh to your eye. There's something about it that doesn't perfectly agree with my visual system. With this guy, everything just worked. I really can't complain. I'll take a couple more pictures. I'll send it back to Leica. I've been trying to convince them to put in some sort of a more conventional 3 reticle in, something less crazy than the PRB reticle, but more sophisticated than the L ballistic. I don't know if they will. I don't have any real influence on that. But it is a really, really nice optomechanical package, and I think Leica will do really well with it. Okay. So that's that's basically the summary on the Leica PRS. If you have any questions on that, now's the time. I'm gonna have other people come on in about 15 minutes, so I can take a few questions. Anything specific to precision rifle scopes, I'll be happy to do now. Okay. Yeah, a little lubrication doesn't hurt. Okay. All right. There are no real questions, so I will talk a little bit about the Brownell's MPO. So for those of you who have not seen it, I'm going to pull up a web page and show you what this new 1:8x24 MPO reticle looks like. I just got it today. I haven't really had a chance to do much of anything with it. Let's see, there we go. Many designs are made by the same OEMs and all that sort of stuff. So some of the interesting things about them are oftentimes the differences in the reticles. So the one in 1:8x24 is something called CQ and OMR. And OMR stands for non-obscuring milliradian reticle. That is Brownell's way of describing the reticles that have those dual. There we go. I found an appropriate image. Let me put it up on the screen so you guys can see. Okay, I had a question from Brian. I assume you're talking about Leica PRS. I thought it was about 20 meters. Yeah, so it's labeled 20 meters. I never took it closer than 25 yards. At 25 yards, it was fine. So I did not test it below that. I did not try it on an airgun where I'd be running into closer ranges, but at 25 yards, it worked fine. Okay. All right. So let's look at this. There we go. So you should be seeing this. There we go. You should be seeing the reticle. So that is the reticle in this 1:8x24 scope. It's a second focal plane design. And this interesting double line reticle design that Brownells uses lends itself surprisingly well toward having really good visibility, whether the scope is illuminated or not. Okay. I have not yet mounted it on a gun, but what I did, I basically took the scope in my hands and went outside to see how bright the reticle is, how visible it is, and all that sort of stuff. It is, excuse me, the only part of the reticle that is illuminated. The only part of the reticle is illuminated is the center dot. I apologize about stuttering. My wife is out of town, and despite repeated reminders that I'll be busy from 7 onwards, she has just called me 4 times. Let's see what she wants. Okay. Anyhow, so the center dot is illuminated, and the way this illumination works, it is a fairly conventional illumination. It is only one illuminated dot, and it is what's called an etch and fill illumination, where there is a reflective coating where that one dot is, and there is an LED in there, and that you're basically getting reflected energy. That is generally it's a less bright illumination than using a optical fiber or using a diffractive reticle, but it's also a much more affordable one. And it does not quite have the limitations in terms of reticle design that fiber optic illuminators bring. In a nutshell, the way this works, diffractive reticle works really well. That's what's in Vortex Razor Gen 3 and stuff like that. It's very bright. You can use it, but it is fairly expensive. There is really only one company called IMT that builds these. They're very, very good. You have a limitation in terms of how much of the reticle you can illuminate, but the biggest problem is price. And if you can afford it, if you get it in your product, it works really, really well. Okay. Now, the fiber optic illumination, that's what is in Delta Striker 1-6, Vortex Razor Gen 2, and stuff like that. It gives you really, really bright dot. It works really well, but the reticle containing this optical fiber has to be electroformed reticle, which basically means a wire type reticle. You cannot easily do it in a glass etched design. So while it is very bright, you are very limited in terms of what kind of features you can put in there. Just a couple of dots and hashes, and that's it. Brownells uses this etched design with double lines and stuff like that. And because of that, they cannot easily do fiber. And if they added a diffractive reticle, it could easily add $400 or $500 to the price of the scope, and they didn't want to do that. So they went with a conventional illumination, and they're using the overall reticle design to keep it visible. It seems to be working fairly well. I'll put it in the gun, go do some shooting, and see how well it really stacks up. Okay. Right. Pardon me. Okay. All right. I apologize. I have to stop for just 1 minute, and I will be back on in 30 seconds. Give me a moment. And we're back on. I apologize about that. I love my wife to pieces, but she's the single most confusing person in the history of the world. Okay. Where was I? Yeah. Brownells and Peel. As far as precision scopes overall go, there was a lot of discussion lately, and I had a lot of questions about this guy. Okay. This is, I don't know how well you can see it. This is the March FX 4.5 to 28 by 52 rifle scope. And it is sort of a kind of a crossover / tactical PRS type design by March. I take some of the responsibility in terms of pushing them to design it the way they did, but I'm kind of liking the way it has worked out so far. It's fairly short and it's fairly compact. It's not hugely heavy. It's around 30 ounces. It's got very wide field of view. I was able to put in my reticle in it, which I'm very excited about. You know, it's type of reticle that works well for me. It's the FML TR1 reticle. And the way this scope is configured, there isn't a really a huge amount of direct competition for it, which, you know, sometimes good, sometimes not so good. But there isn't a whole lot, partly because of this size. So the for full-size precision scopes, the Leica is a comparatively compact design. And here are the two side by side, March, Leica, right? So just to give you an idea on differences in size. Okay. This is the Revic. Okay. 4.5 to, how was it, 4 to 28 by 56. Okay. You see the difference in terms of comparative size. It really matters for some scopes, and this particular one, interestingly, is equally well at home on accurate gas guns or bolt action rifles. And if you're trying to run something in front of it, it's fairly short. But the big thing that March was trying to achieve with this is they scaled back a little bit on the magnification ratio. but got more forgiving parallax and better depth of field. It's still not a tangent data in that regard, but it is more forgiving than earlier March designs. Another thing that's a little bit different about the 4.5 to 28 by 52 is that what's a nice way of saying this? The way zoom ratio rifle scopes are designed, the optical quality cannot be always perfectly optimized at every possible magnification. It doesn't work that way. What is usually done is that they optimize it, try to make it as perfect as they can at one particular magnification, and then they go and try to make sure it doesn't fall off too much at the rest of the magnifications. March, like quite a few different manufacturers, traditionally has always really optimized at high power, highest magnification, partly because of their background with target scopes and stuff like that. Okay. So, what was I? Yeah. So my wife is texting me and it distracts me, but everything seems to be okay. So most of the rifle scopes, variable power rifle scopes, are optimized at one magnification. For many of them, typically it's the highest magnification. If you're talking about PRS type designs and stuff like that, and think about it, which magnification do you use the most? Okay. It's not always entirely clear which magnification you use the most, but you usually are not on the highest power. So what happened with this scope, it is really, really perfectly optimized between 15 and 20 power. It's still very good in 28, and it's very good in lower magnifications. It's still a March scope, but it's really optimized in the 15 to 20 range. And that makes all the difference in the world. And that is where I run the scope most of the time. Right. Okay, where are my guests? Because I didn't prepare too much bullshit. If they don't show up quickly, I'll just open it up to a Q&A. So if you guys have questions, anything you want to add, do not hesitate to do so. And I'll see what I can address before Brian and Joe show up. Okay. How interesting. All right, I've got Joe. Joe, if you can hear me, nod if you're ready to be added to the stream or not yet. Joe, nod. Joe's nodding. All right.
Yeah, I'm trying to get lined up, man.
All right, welcome aboard. I just got done with bullshitting about high-end precision rifle scopes. You missed exactly nothing important.
Nothing important?
Not a damn thing, man.
Oh shit! I wish I'd have caught it, man. I went to go get supper, and they were running so far behind, and I'd already promised my wife what we were going to get, and then I couldn't get it. It's like, well, crap! I gotta hurry. I'm sitting here right now.
No worries. I really do appreciate it.
Oh yeah, man. Thanks for having me on again, man. For real.
It's always a lot of fun. So I'll give you a little summary. I'm wrapping up with the Leica PRS scope. And there is an interesting thing, right? So I'm going to make fun of you a little bit, so I think you'll forgive me.
No,
I'm going to do it in a not so nice way. So unlike Joe, the rest of us are really not used to looking at anything with one eye for any length of time. Joe, on the other hand, has had a few years to get used to this.
True.
And when you're looking through a high magnification scope, you get very little advantage from your other eye. But what happens is because your brain is waiting for inputs from both eyes, you get tired. You get tired fast. Right? And you'll probably notice this, right? With some rifle scopes that look good, sharp, everything, but you use them for any length of time, you just get tired. Your eye gets tired. Everything gets screwy. With a lot of fancy scopes, one of the ways to tell the men from the boys, so to speak, is that can you use it for an extended period of time and not get tired as much. And what's interesting, originally, I like this Leica scope, right? It's a freaking Leica. I expect it to be good, but it was okay. It's nothing special.
Really?
The interesting thing happened when I used it for a long time. I just maintained my visual acuity for much longer than I can with any scope other than Tangent Theta, the $5,000 freaking dollar Tangent Theta.
Right.
Because I just didn't get tired as much. There was contrast. It looked good. It was just different. It's kind of an interesting observation.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so Brian is running late, it seems. Have you already received the...
I talked to him earlier today. I know he's coming. Let me ask you something. On the Leicas, I know you have way more experience with them than I do. Overall, how do you rate them?
So, generally, I like Leica scopes. For general purpose hunting scopes, if you want to spend some money, I think Leica Magnus is the best. It'll cost you, but I think it is the best. Now, between the high-end, Magnus and Swarovski Z8, and to some degree Zeiss V8, I actually like the Zeiss a little bit less now. They're all very good, and it's a lot of it is really personal preference.
Yeah.
Leica tunes the images for really good contrast. They all do things a little bit differently. Leica tunes images for really, really solid contrast. And one of the things that it does is, for example, for hunting, one of the things that is really important is to be able to carry your color vision way into dim light. As the light gets lower, your eye switches from operating what's called the photopic regime, when you see color, into scotopic regime, where it's you engage the rods in your eye and you see in black and white. The catch is it's not just a change from color vision to monochrome, right? The rods are very, very sensitive to low light levels, but you lose resolution tremendously because they are much less densely packed. They are more distributed across the retina, but they're much less densely packed. They're more for sensing than seeing, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So to really see things in a sharp detail, you really want to engage your cones in your eye, the cells that see color.
Uh-huh.
Between the photopic and scotopic regimes, there is the mesopic regime, which is a combination of the two. And if you really want to see well in low light, you want to maintain some ability to see color, even if you're not perceiving it, it's just the cells that see color, as long as possible. And enhanced contrast really helps you with that. Yeah. And this is one of the things that Leica does really, really well. For example, and they just agree with my eye, but for example, the single best binocular I've ever seen, bar none, nothing has been close, is the Leica Noctivid. Right? It's absolutely remarkable. With precision rifle scopes, the Leica is very good, and it's very good for the money. It's not the best precision rifle scope out there, but those are significantly more expensive.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not a simple call, but it does have that Leica feel. There is another not very well-known fact. So a significant number of these very high-end rifle scopes, the optical system has been designed, or at least partially designed, or at least he was a consultant by a German designer named Lothar Kolsch, who is the guy who did some of the optical system for Tangent, Schmidt and Bender 5-25, a lot of the Optronica stuff, and quite a few of them out there. Not the latest Schmidts, but the older ones. He used to work for Schmidt for a bit. Well, he got his optical training at Leica because he used to be the head of Leica camera optical design. And then he went off and started designing rifle scopes. So there is a lot of that legacy of Leica optical design and many of the best of the German rifle scopes. Okay, and the big part of it is being able to see the subtle contrast variations that allow you to see color longer than most other scopes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I'll tell you something else that I've noticed. I've only got to test one in my fixture that I take to the rifle range.
Mm-hmm.
And on the targets that I test on, there are white targets sitting against a black background,
Correct.
which nothing shows chromatic aberration worse than that.
Yes.
Black against white, it's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
But the one Leica scope I was able to test, now it was a lower powered. I want to say it was in like the 4-12, 3-9. It was one of the guys that out there at the range had it. And he had it on quick detach mounts.
Yes.
And just for the hell of it, I threw it up there, and it was unbelievable. And every time I ever see a Leica and I look through it, it refreshes my memory. Okay, now I remember why those are so nice. But I've never had a chance to play with one of their with their precision scopes.
Well,
You
there's
know?
only one really, so this is sort of the new design. I can connect you to the Leica guy, and I'm sure that they can loan you one. You can play with it.
Yeah, that'd be fine, man. I like
Yeah.
to say, it's one of those scope lines. It's not that I'm not interested in testing them. It's just, you can't know everybody.
Yeah,
And
no.
certain companies you go back to because they
Mhm.
stay in touch with you. You know.
In the early days when I just remember, so this whole scope testing thing. Oh, there's Brian. So Brian, you should be able to hear me. I'll add you on in a minute. Let me finish this speech. So in the early days of this, I started doing this probably before most other people in terms of testing scopes and talking about them. And there were not that many players. I knew them all.
Yeah.
There's now a million of them, right? And I am physically not able to cover everything anymore. So half the time I go for low-hanging fruit. Some of them talk to me, some of them hate my ass, and I tend to test the scopes from people who talk to me. It's a self-selecting sample, but I don't have time anyway. So there's only so much. I reach out to everyone, right? But there's only so much effort I'm willing to put in to chase after different companies.
See, I'm in the exact same boat.
Yeah.
There's, I couldn't name all the different optical companies out there now. And a new one pops up every week, and one we're fixing to talk about now. I know it's not new to you, but it'll be new to me. And, I'm like you, the low-hanging fruits, the ones that, I have some type of relationship with that'll contact me back.
Yeah, exactly.
These are the ones I test more often.
Yeah, to be fair, I should not complain. There are really two companies that hate my ass and everybody else talks to me, right? So.
Oh, let's hear who they are.
Oh, you know who they are. It's Kalis, Swarovski, and Night Force.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah.
You're in good company. Night Force has no love for me.
Yeah. Look, I don't have anything against Night Force products. I really like Night Force attacker scopes. But their lower end scopes don't do anything for me, and I can explain why. I don't think Night Force is handling that very, very well.
Yeah.
With Kalis, they have K5 to 25. It's a good scope, but just optically, it's behind other scopes in the same price range. And Kalis was not impressed with my take on it, and I get it, right? I just talk about stuff. They're in the business of selling scopes, but it is what it is. All right, we've got a couple of people here, and Brian is coming back. I'll put him on a moment. Hi, Bill. Thank you for joining us again.
Hey, Bill. How you doing?
Okay. So I'll take one question, then I'm going to add Brian, and we'll switch topics for a little bit. So Christopher is looking at the new March 1.5 to 15 for a hunting scope. How does it stack up to the Leica Magnus in terms of low light performance, field of view, and the eye box? Magnus is going to be a little bit better, but less flexible magnification range. In terms of pure optical performance, March is very good, but the eye box and field of view of the Leica Magnus is a little bit better. All right, Brian, you ready? If you're ready, nod. Okay, I'll take it as a yes.
Yes.
I know he's ready. I talked to him earlier today.
And you're alive, my friend.
Yes, I'm ready.
What's up, buddy?
Nothing, man. How you doing?
Good.
Good seeing you.
Yeah, you too, man.
All right, I've got somebody who says he has a question for Joe, but I don't know what the question is. Derek, speak up.
Let's hear it, Derek. What's it say?
New to PCP air guns. What's the best gun? 25 caliber and under. 25 caliber under $600. Not a Benjamin. I have my opinions, but I've got airgun people here. I'll let you guys tackle that, and then we'll move on to other things.
You take it, man. My first guess, my just go-to move would be the Air Force for under $600. If you get in touch with John, he can probably hook you up with a. Sometimes I'll have a problem with one that's anodized or something like that, but Brian knows way more about this than I do. But I can say in the PCPs, there's the cheap ones, and then there's the good ones, and there's not a lot of in between. And it sucks that it's like that, but it's just the way it is. Best I can see it. That's kind of the way it is.
Well,
Brian, what's your take?
Yeah, I think so. I think probably maybe the Avenger for that price. I think those things are about $300. I think they're regulated. Probably the Avenger.
Avengers is the gun of the company.
Yeah, that's a gun. I think they sell them at Pyramid Air.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
There are
200.
several different
$300
versions of that by different companies, aren't there, Brian?
Yeah, they're all the same. I think they're all made by the company called Snow Peak, which is a Chinese-made company. But Air Force, obviously, an American company. Probably it's a single shot. So if you're looking for a multi-shot, it would probably be the Avenger.
Mm-hmm.
Under $600, kind of really limits you.
Yeah.
It's kind of like it's like saying, what's the best Lpvo for under $400?
Yeah.
Move on.
Delta Hornet.
Yes, Delta Hornet.
Yeah.
Or $200. Move on.
Doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So my very first PCP airgun was just a little bit under $600, and it was an Air Force Talon SS that I've used for about a decade, and 2 days ago it finally broke.
Mm.
Right, but I don't know how many pellets I've put through it, but I've shot that thing a lot, and what broke is the fill valve. So I need to probably just yank it out, get a new one.
Yeah.
I do Air Force Talon SS probably.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Derek's changing his mind. How about under 1,200?
Brian, take it, man. You know more about that than I do now.
Yeah, 1,200. Well, honestly, what I would do is I'd look for a used gun that was like an Edgun R3M or an older Wildcat. That's what I'd go. But 1,200
Caliber gun cricket, that's a good one. You
Caliber
got
gun
for $1,000.
Exactly. Why go new when you can get a slightly used one? Air gunners are gun of the month club guys. They hardly shoot them. We dump them in a new one. So
just for the record, if you want to plug Edgun, you are more than welcome to.
Okay. Edgun, but
there are no real restrictions.
$1,200. So
well,
it's gonna be tough.
All right.
Yeah.
I gave you a chance, man.
Yeah.
All right. So let's so guys, keep the way I do this. So Joe has been here before, Brian hasn't. The way I do this, there are a couple topics I want to cover, and the questions will keep piling up, and then we'll just go through them in chronological order. You guys are welcome to stick around for as long as you'd like, or bow out when you're ready. I am deciding to put a hard cap on this thing at 3 hours, because last one went over 5 hours, and keep in mind, I have a standing desk, so I stand and I drink. So it's not good for my liver or my feet if it lasts for 5 hours. Okay. Once again, you guys missed out. There is the fan favorite Guess My Booze competition happening here. There is an unidentified ROM in here. And if you figure out which one it is, I'll send you a free t-shirt. I'll just give out what it is, but let's see if anybody is listening. All right, guys. So we can talk. If you, Brian is the importer of Edguns, Edgun West. Is anybody else in the US, or is it just you?
That's just me.
Just me. All right. So he is pretty much the sole source for Russian-made Edgun air guns.
Right.
You guys know how generally suspicious I am of anything made in Russia, but I actually have one of those in the way, right? So that should tell you that I have room for personal growth. Something I would not admit otherwise. More interestingly to me in many ways, Brian is just started to import a new line of rifle scopes made in Russia. A company called Dedal, D-E-D-A-L. Until Brian asked me about them, was it a few months ago? I knew absolutely nothing about these guys. And I still don't know that much, but I know a lot of the people in this general world, so I went and asked some questions. And there wasn't a single person who said anything bad about these scopes, which for me was kind of interesting. Everybody says they're well made. Everybody says they're very good. They have a good following in Russia and in Europe. And they're virtually non-existent in the United States until now, when Brian is beginning to bring them in. I plan to look at one or two at some point. They have some interesting stuff. We can kind of cover that later. I think Joe already has one, or not yet?
The only one that I've used is the Dedal 6-power.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I can tell guys, it's the, and I love fixed power scopes. Anybody watching my channel knows I do. But for a 6-power, it's probably got the largest field of view of anything I've ever seen.
Okay.
And I normally hunt with 6-42s on my hog rifles. But the Dedal, it's an incredible optic. I'm not saying that because Brian's here. We're obviously all three buddies, but
it will not prevent me from making fun of both of you, just for the record.
Yeah, do your thing, man. But it's an incredible optic. I mean, it's unusual looking, but it's an incredible optic. But I'm just like you. I'm really excited to check out the new stuff.
Yeah. So I'll let Brian talk about the scope line overall. The 6-power that Joe mentioned, it is the only one that I can think of offhand where it is a prismatic rifle scope that has adjustable parallax. It's not so easy to achieve, and they pulled it off, and it seemed to be holding up quite nicely. Anyhow,
hold on, I have one right here.
Oh, perfect. So remember, you can't show guns on the scopes. If you show a gun, YouTube will kill the live cast.
Hold on one second. Give me a second then.
Of course.
Well, while he's doing that, can I say something to you if it's okay?
Oh, you can say anything you want.
Anybody that's watching, if anybody out there that even knows about my channel or watch it or anything else, I do want to say the two guys that are on the screen right now are two of the guys that have helped me so much with optics and knowledge years before I ever knew Ilya's name. I used to follow him on a lot of the optical forums, and I would, listen to what he was saying and, research what he was saying. And there was a point I thought, this guy's a know-it-all bullshitter. And once he started researching,
it's not incorrect.
No, he's actually educated and knows what he's talking about. And Brian, it also has helped me so much. You guys just cannot know the number of times that I've reached out to him for different help. I want to know about this, checking on that, whether it's PCPs, guns, pellets, shooting, shotguns. He's helped me a ton too. So I wanted to let the guys know, how important both of you guys are to me.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Quick kind words, man. Anyhow, Brian, so if you want to do like an overview of the Dedal scopes, how you stumbled on this stuff and all those sort of thing, the floor is yours.
Okay, so I stumbled on it through Ed, the owner of Edgun in Russia. I knew about them because I wanted something that, well, first of all, I always like things that are a little different. And I wanted something that was not Chinese. Not that I have a problem with Chinese scopes. I sell them. Some of them can be very good. Some of them are obviously trash. It really depends on the company. But I wanted something different, and I really wanted something that was all Russian because it's a Russian gun. And as a kid, I dreamed of owning a Dragunov with that cool Russian Dragunov scope on there. So I guess it was probably a little bit of childhood wants too. So anyways, Ed, I also had asked Ed, I said, there's nothing that's kind of fits the Leshy. Leshy is like a gun that was completely outside of the line of thinking before any air gun, and there was no scope for it because anything that was like kind of an AR scope, for lack of a better word, had a fixed parallax at 100 meters or 100 yards. So as a result of that, there was not all the scopes that would fit it were basically the AR-15 scopes, but they had a fixed parallax. So Ed went to Dedal and talked them into taking. I think they have this body right here, this prismatic, is offered in a 1X with them, and so they basically did a 6X, and Ed got his reticle as a result of it, which you can go on my website and look at the reticle. But what's cool about it is the parallax is up here on top. And I don't know if you can catch the click value of it, but it kind of clicks, and it's a very forgiving prismatic scope. And I mean, it's got an integrated mount. The only thing I don't like about it, if I was going to criticize anything, is that it takes a AA, and I prefer lithium batteries inside of a scope because of the tendency to leak and ruin your scope. So I don't like that. I have talked to them about it. It does have a 7-position illuminated reticle with a rubber click button. Click on, turns it on and off, and it remembers the last setting that you're on the 7-spot illumination. And then, of course, it has the small cap turrets right here, which are not meant really for doping, just kind of a set it and forget it type of situation. Mm-hmm. I would like to have target turrets on here, but I think it kind of goes against the gestalt of this kind of scope. And of course, it's made of Russian duraluminum, and then we'll talk about the Dedal company or in a little bit, I suppose. But what's really unique about them is I don't know, and maybe you can tell me about this, but I don't think too many scope companies make 100% of their stuff in-house. But Dedal does everything from the body, glass, you name it. There isn't a part that's outsourced.
Very, very few. There are some do this more for the military in the conventional day scopes, almost none. Elcan in Canada is kind of weird. And, there's a raw glass and aluminum, stainless steel and brass are delivered and rifle scopes come out. Right, they do everything in-house up in Midlands. But Swarovski grinds their own, Schmidt does. There are a few others. By and large, most people are outsourcing pieces. Doing the high-quality companies are leaning toward the model where they do the design, they outsource pieces to subcontractors and do assembly alignment and everything in-house. That's probably the most common way of doing it. Okay. Go ahead.
So as far as I know, like you said, Delta, which I also sell Deltas too, I'm plugging that as well, has a 3x prismatic, which is a really cool, neat scope. I can get that in a second if you want to look at that when we switch gears. But this, as far as I know, this is the only prismatic scope that is a 6x fixed powered prismatic, and it has a 12 mil holdover. This is obviously a mil scope, but it has 12 mil holdover reticles, which is Ed wanted for his air guns, obviously, but it'll fit anything, from any other kind of rifle.
It's an interesting design. Very cool.
So that's the stalker, and that's kind of how I introduced it. This thing was so durable and so high quality. I mean, Ed ran it over with his truck, with a Land Cruiser, in typical Russian fashion. We'll teach you what strong means. So he ran it over 6 times. If you haven't seen the video, I welcome you to go on there. He runs the gun and scope over 6 or 7 times with his Land Cruiser to prove its strength, and it held 0.
Okay, can't argue with that.
Yeah. So that's that one. I can show you the Lpvo if you want to see that.
Please do. Like I said, just whatever you have, let's bring it up on the screen and talk a little bit. I know you went and visited the company. Tell me what you thought and stuff like that.
Yeah. So this is the Lpvo. It's a 1-to-7 DHF, and it also has the same push button design here. This does have a lithium in it, which I do prefer. What's kind of interesting is it's got a fast. The whole diopter turns.
Okay.
Kind of cool because you can grab your hand and.
Okay, I'm gonna make you bigger so that everybody can see the scope better. There we go.
Yeah, so it's kind of cool because a lot of times it's just a throw switch, but this here is designed.
So like a Night Force, yeah.
Yeah, like a Night Force, yeah, exactly. And then,
Brian, does it come with that mount?
Yeah, this is a mount that's optional, but yes, this is made by them. I know Ilya didn't like this kind of mount because he says
it doesn't work great.
Yeah, but I disagree. But that's the beauty of having a Russian friend. You can disagree with them and they don't hate you.
So I don't hate you as long as we both know that I'm right. It's perfectly fine.
Exactly. Exactly. You can say whatever you want to them, and they just keep coming back to more abuse. Right. Yeah, they can take abuse. They're like the scopes. Ilya can take abuse. So, but what I like about it is look at this cool little feature here. So it locks, and then it has a little push button lock here.
Oh, very cool. It's a nice gun.
So it returns to 0 nice and and this is got a cap turret, which I think is a good feature for an Lpvo. I think you'd agree with that. And 0 stop. And listen to the clicks here. Let's see if we can catch it. And look at no slop. I like that too. Nice. I'm really picky with scopes. Obviously, I'm kind of a scope snob. I think all 3 of us are. And this thing, I took a gamble on them, and the glass is good. It's got a good reticle. Nice holdover. I think it can be used. It's got 7 positions also. It also remembers the last illumination point that it was on. So it comes with a nice little tool. Very minimalist box. And I'll show you one other thing it comes with. Let me grab it real quick.
Looking at Brian's organized workshop over there, I feel very shameful. You guys will never see my workshop ever, ever, ever.
I'm envious.
Okay, so check this out. It comes with this cool little bag that you can, go to and from your range or whatever you want. And so I guess, because if you get that integrated mount, you could pull it off your AK-47. And interestingly enough, if you go on my website, the Russian national 3-gun team won with this scope.
Oh,
so, yeah. So they won the World Championship 3-gun, and all 9 members used this scope with this mount, by the way, that Ilya doesn't like. But
well, for 3-gun, it's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Once you start extending the range, you will start having issues. I did a lot of testing on single ring mounts like that. If the single ring is behind the turrets, it's very easy to shift 0 by pressing an objective. So you don't touch it.
You're
not shooting very far. It's fine.
Yeah, you could put it in front. It is.
How big is that tube, Brian?
This is a 34.
Yeah.
34. Oh, okay.
So if you reverse this mount and put that dual rings in front of the turrets, it will actually hold 0 better. Yeah,
it will do that. This happens to fit on a Leshy like this better.
Okay.
So.
Well, we'll just have to redesign the gun.
Yeah. So that's kind of those are the kind of the whole line of them. Joe's going to do a kick-ass review, I think, of the 5 to 25, and they have a couple cool little features coming out. Like, the bigger scopes have a cant warning on them. Mm-hmm. So when you cant them, they illuminate the reticle.
So let's step back for a little bit. What are the models you're looking to bring in? What's the ETA? Do you already have all of them, or just the 1 to 7s? So give me kind of an overview.
No, I have all of them. So I'm bringing in the full line of scopes, from the prismatic 6 Dedal Stalker, the Lpvo, the 3 to 12 by 50, the 5 to 25 by 56, the 7 to 24 by 56 second focal plane, which has an interesting reticle where they mark the reticle at 7 and 24 so that you know your values.
Interesting. Okay.
Which is, I think, that's a cool feature, right? So you don't have to do as much math. So
Americans and math, what's the problem?
Well, come on, we can't do math.
We barely speak English.
Oh, no. don't start when Americans trying to write in English. I worked so hard to learn this language, and you guys are killing
it. Exactly.
There's English, and then there's American English.
Yeah.
And American English basically is just one step up from making clicks and grunts.
Yeah. Communicating. But you know the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I decided to go for the full line because it's it's interesting and it's different. And right now was a good time because high quality scopes are almost impossible to get.
Yeah, there's a wait list and everything. I vaguely remember when I looked at the website, there was one scope that was kind of a smart scope, a little bit like the Revic, that was able to talk to a smartphone and all that. Which one is that?
Yeah, that's the Harrier. That's the 7 to 24 Harrier by 56. That will be available in the spring, which is not Russian spring, which is I think August, but real spring here. So it'll be like
you live in California. All you have is summer, okay?
Yeah, we have summer and summer light.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, but what's cool about it, if you guys have ever used the Strelock app, is it's going to communicate with the Strelock app. So all your BCs and stuff, it'll do drop compensation for you automatically.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah. That'll be out. I think they told me May. It'll be available.
Okay. So when it's out, do let me know. I want to run it side by side with the Revic, which does broadly similar things.
For sure. Yeah.
And I'm very, very curious to see how that does. I spent a lot of time looking at the Revit and the Steiner IFS, also similar general concept. So I'm monitoring how that is developing quite carefully.
Yeah, so I think it's a whole new line of cool smart scopes that should be coming out. I'm very interested in that one.
Yeah, that will be interesting to see. So beyond the 6-power Dedal, the prismatic, so now that you have the 1-7, you said you have the rest of them. I'm sure you've had a chance to glance at them.
Yeah.
What's your take on them so far?
Well, I think the clarity is, I think everyone sees color a little differently when they're looking at scopes. But for my eye, the clarity is. What's interesting about the Dedal is at 7x, it seems like 12x in a lot of scopes. So it seems like even Joe, you've looked to the Dedal stalkers, doesn't seem like a 6x scope, does it? It seems like.
And what's weird, it doesn't seem like that because it cuts down the field of view. It really doesn't. It seems like that because the image seems larger, but there's nobody I know that's looked through more tier 1 scopes than Ilya. And really good scopes always give you that illusion. It looks like it's more magnification than it is because the resolution is so freaking high. You feel like, you're seeing stuff that you wouldn't see on something else at that magnification.
Contrast is what gives you that effect, not resolution.
Right.
Yeah, that's what's called image pop, right? The way.
Yeah.
It kind of gives you like an HD, like even at 1x and with this scope. I look at it and I go, oh, geez, my eyes aren't as good as they used to be. Because even at 1x, I look through it and everything looks just a little crisper. And I pull my head away and I go, damn, I got a little older.
I hate to break it to you, you got a little older.
Yeah.
No, so it's a
shit factor.
It's a very
it's
a very interesting effect. It's a combination of contrast and depth of field, and that's what gives you this palpable 3-dimensional image.
Yeah.
And it's not so easy to achieve. Around some scopes do it better than others. So it's going to be very interesting to see.
Yeah. So I was very pleased with, you take a gamble and you order big because Victor, it took a while. I actually had to send Ed to the Moscow gun show to basically vouch for me because, as you know, Russians are by nature, they are doubting Thomases by nature. They think they
immediately. There's one on the screen now.
No, I know. That's what I'm saying. This guy here.
I'm so offended right now. I have no idea. I think I need a drink.
There ain't nothing in the world that would offend you.
This is how Russians deal with being offended, just for the record.
Oh, yeah. Just drink a little more, screw you.
Right.
I'm going to take a guess at that rum here in a minute.
Yeah.
What was Ed saying about it, man?
Well, I mean, he's impressed by the company. They're pretty serious. I think this was a Soviet scope manufacturer, and I think that they at the fall of the Soviet Union, I think they went private. But I think they were a publicly owned company. Is that correct?
So. In Soviet Union, everything was publicly owned, right? Nothing was private property. Everything was owned by the state. Soviet Union had a fairly well-developed domestic optics industry. Mostly, the classical optics was based off of the stolen Zeiss plans that they stole after World War II. Yeah, but they had indigenous night vision technology and a few other things. There were several research centers that did this. They early on identified that this kind of stuff is important. And several existed. In the collapse of the Soviet Union, different government property was what's called privatized, right? So if you knew the right people, etc., for no money at all, you would be able to get control of a plant that used to employ 30,000 people or something for $5, something like that. But then you had to keep it running, survive the 90s, which was interesting. For successful Russian businessmen, 9 out of 10 died in the 90s. That's when Putin and company were kind of assuming power. And there was a lot of elimination of competition happening. But ultimately, there were several of these plants. Most of them have really either shut down or got greatly diminished, or really reoriented themselves toward doing night vision. There are only 2 that I can think of off the top of my head that really maintain this ability. Well, no, 3 really maintain this ability and production of day scopes. And this factory that makes Dedal is one of them. There's another one in Belarus, in Minsk, called Lpvo. They do a lot of AK type POSP scopes and stuff like that. And they do them consistently, actually not bad. Another famous one is called NPZ in a place in Siberia called Novosibirsk. They do both night vision and day scopes, but the problem is they do day scopes very seldom. So they got to mothball the product line every 3 years. They get it up and running and do a large batch of scopes, but the consistency is not there because they're not doing this day in and day out.
Mhm.
The guys who build Dedal do this day in and day out. The guys in Belarus and Lpvo, they do simpler things, but they do the day in and day out, right? It's a proper manufacturing enterprise. And the guys who are doing the technical stuff at Dedal, from what I've been able to tell by asking people, other Russian immigrants who are older than I am, so they had some ties to these type of places earlier, they are saying that these guys are really competent. Once again, to be clear, I've never seen the scopes, don't have any personal experience with them. I was just doing basically some background checking on the company.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So definitely, I'm going to get you and Joe one of the 5 to 25 by 56s, so you guys can give it the old.
Yeah.
So it'll be just something different, and I think it's always interesting. Everybody does the same thing, and I've always been, I have a strange dog, a strange wife, and I like strange scopes. So it's I always like something a little different. She's not here, that's why I can talk.
Yeah, so my wife right now is in California. I can send her over to PRS. She served in the Israeli army.
Yeah, my wife is actually part Russian, so that's what's so disgusting about this whole thing. It seems like I only talk to Russians anymore.
Very cool. Okay, so thank you for the introduction. That sort of makes sense. And it's I know you have them on your website, but for the people who haven't had a chance to look, where are these approximately priced? Who do you think is your biggest competition with these scopes? Who do you think they're going to go after?
I think it's right in the Night Force category. It's right around 1,800 to 2,200. I don't have the price of the Harrier, the Smart Scope. I can only assume it's going to be a lot more. I don't know a lot more. It could be just a couple $100 more. So I'm guessing in the $2,500 range. So probably that mid tier 1, I guess, mid tier 1, not top end, not low, but they're not cheap, and they have the. When I talked to Victor, the manager, they got the idea that they're making really good stuff and they're not going to discount it. So it's very hard to find the scopes, actually, even in Europe, to sell. I want to say that when I looked hard, because you always try to look when you're bringing something to see what everyone else is selling them for. I couldn't find anybody. So this is I'm starting from scratch here completely. I don't even know anybody that uses them outside of Russia. And even in Russia, they're considered quite expensive.
Yeah, they're definitely not cheap scopes, but ultimately the product stands on its own merit, right?
Yeah.
If it is worth the money, it will sell, and if it's not, it won't. We'll know soon enough.
Yeah.
Sure.
As a few of these get out there, you'll learn really fast.
Right.
Yeah. But it sounds like you're going after Night Force, Vortex Razor.
Yes.
Probably not a Night Force Attacker, more like Night Force NX8.
Right.
And stuff like that. To some degree, there's going to be competition with the Striker, Delta Striker that you have.
Yeah.
It's going to be kind of in the ballpark. It's a difficult field, but it sounds like they make good stuff. We'll see.
Right.
I know. I'm excited to try it out.
Yeah, I'm curious. It's so uncommon for me to see a new scope brand. You have no idea how excited I am because everything else I've seen.
Yeah. Well, that's what. The one thing I can guarantee, you won't find them on Amazon.
What? Yeah, you're trying to tell me is I'm not going to find the Dedal scope at Walmart in the blister pack?
Yeah, it's not going to be there. Yeah. We'll be hanging on the pegboard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm really curious to see how it stacks up against the Delta Striker, because all three of us are big fans of that scope.
Yes.
And like I say, for me and that, well, as a matter of fact, I'm making a video right now, and I know Ilya will probably have some input on it as far as what I think is the better or the best $1,500-ish scopes for precision shooting. and it's a really crowded field. It really, really is. And just me personally, in around that price range, the striker is at the very top. You know, that, like I say, everybody has their own opinion. Everybody's eyes are different as far as color and stuff, like we were talking about before. But the strikers are just incredible. And if this thing can get in there with the Vortex Razor and that kind of stuff, I'm really excited to play with it.
It's going to be interesting to see. It's there's this common misnomer when somebody gets a scope from the same OEM, they assume it's the same thing. It's not, right?
Right.
So what we usually have in this type of scope, this basic core design by Light Optics Works, has been used for Athlon Chronos, Trigicon 10 Mile, a Delta Striker, Tracked Toric, right? And there are a couple more that I'm not thinking of right now, but they're out there. And I've looked at quite a few of them. Traditionally, Striker has been most consistent with that design, and that's slightly different. But Tracked is doing good things there as well.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see. But I will say this. So this type of a scope has gotten so good that when I make scope recommendations, I basically tell people, look carefully in this $1,500 to $2,000 range. And if you really want something that is substantially better, you need to be jumping up to the Tangent 8s and Marches. Because just going a little bit up in price does not give you all that much.
Yeah.
To be a little bit better, you need to spend a lot more money.
A lot like what we're saying about the air guns, to go from $600 to the really good stuff. I mean, it's a huge jump, and it sucks that that's the way it is, but that's just the way it is in optics. There's nobody that knows more about optics than I know than you guys, and y'all both say the same thing. You know, to go past $2,000 to go better than that, you basically have to double the money.
No, pretty much. Yeah.
You know, or significantly better.
Yeah. But this is the thing, right? So I shoot with the Tangents and Marches. Great. I can't have one on every gun. I absolutely can't.
Yeah.
If I put one on every gun, my gun collection will cost more than my house.
Right. Yeah, so I think sometimes you choose features, you know, rather than I get this question a lot from customers. How's the glass? It's like, at this price range, the glass is going to be the glass. It's not like these guys don't know how to make glass. So choose your reticle, choose your features. Do you like the zero stop this way? Do you like it that way? Do you like the size of the scope? Those are the things you go after when you've decided, I'm going to spend $1,500 on a scope.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't, I'm not going to say that this glass is amazing, because like we've mentioned already, I've looked through scopes and they look better to me than other ones, and it has to do with the, what do you guys call it? The chromatic, the way my eyes see color. I maybe see red's a little different than you see, or I see green's a little different than you see, and that's just
determines color response.
Yes, that's and that's human. That's just humans, So, glass is glass. When you get to that, they all know how to make glass. The Japanese know how to make glass. The Germans obviously know how to make glass, and how much time they spend grinding it, and the quality and all that stuff's going to be the same. There's no free lunches at $1,500. So choose what the things that you like and the durability of it, and don't get sucked into, I would say too, this crazy warranty. There's a reason why somebody offers a lifetime warranty on something. They're amortizing. I sell them. I know how much the margins are. You're amortizing the warranty amongst a bunch of people. You're hoping for less than a 10% return rate, and you're charging everyone for about 7 or 8% returns. I'm just telling you, that's a fact of life as a retailer.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah. And if I can add to that, companies that really push their warranty on everybody, that's covered. It makes me suspicious. It really does. I would rather have my scopes on my rifles than in the mail. I cannot stand that shit. I absolutely hate it. And there's a couple of companies that come to mind that, I've returned more scopes than I've got and been able to work with to start off with. And guys that are warranty shopping, any legitimate scope company is going to take it back. I mean,
Mhm.
unless you do something stupid, drive over it with a car like you were talking about, Ed. But if it's just a failure in the scope, anybody's going to take it back. All of these companies want repeat customers. It's such a competitive business. They want repeat customers. They want people to be, brand loyal.
That
And
is
being
very true.
brand loyal because they took a scope back that was screwed up from the factory, I don't know. That doesn't really do it for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Did I say Vortex?
Oh, I know what you mean. So we can have a nice argument because with Vortex, I actually know what their return rates are for different product lines.
Yeah.
So
And
it's
I'm
much lower than people think, but yes.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the razors. I'm not talking about
correct.
the really good Vortexes.
Yeah.
But some of the mid price Vortexes, it just seems like so many of them go back that it's ridiculous at times. And I know a lot of it has to do with manufacturing and different batches that are bad and stuff like that.
So I'll ask you a question, guys. So I talked to a lot of scope manufacturers. Of let's say 10 scopes that they take back that are returned and exchanged, how many do you think actually have something wrong with them?
2%, 3% probably.
No, it's higher than that.
I would say maybe 1 in 10 have something actually wrong with it.
Yeah, usually 1 in 10 or 2 in 10. The rest of them is user error.
Yeah, I know. I deal with a lot of user error.
Yeah.
Most of the time, people can't tell their ass from an elbow, and there goes half of my audience, or they basically think that the gap in the rings should not be there.
Right.
I'll tell you a story. I went shooting once years ago with a buddy of mine, and he brought his friend, an anesthesiologist, well-educated guy, smart guy. He bought his new Leupold scopes and says, "It's not shooting well. I'm probably going to send it back." I explained what I do. He asked me to take a look at it. I look at it, and he shows me the gun and proudly tells me that he worked hard to make sure the rings are closed all the way in, and there's a shit ton of Loctite in there to make sure it doesn't move. So when I took those stupid rings off, there was this almost 2 millimeter indentations in the tube. He squeezed it so hard.
Oh man. Yeah.
Okay.
The thing that I really like seeing, and more of the scope companies that I talk to, they get so many scopes back on the adjustable objective or the side focus.
Yeah.
That guys send them back that they don't line up. And I've told several guys, as a matter of fact, Brian and I had this discussion about a week or two ago, is my prediction in the next 10 years, I don't think anybody's going to number them anymore. I really don't, because they get so many scopes back that there's nothing wrong with them. Absolutely nothing wrong with them. It's just the numbers didn't line up for that particular individual, or didn't know how to set the focus, or didn't know how to set the eyepiece, or something like that. And me personally, as long as it's parallax free and the image is clear, I'm good to go.
That sounds about right. One of the big problems with parallax is that people don't care to set up their eyepieces correctly. I did a couple of videos on that, and everyone I've pointed them to says, "Oh, I didn't know I'm supposed to do that. I usually just go and shoot." No, you need to adjust this thing to your eye. All right, you guys want to go through some questions?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I would like to say one thing on top of that, though. What sucks now on YouTube, I tried to load this video here a few weeks ago, and I was discussing this exact thing. That, trying to set the parallax, setting the focus, tweaking the eyepiece, getting everything just right. And on YouTube now, that's considering altering a firearm or something like that. And they won't let the video, go without it being age restricted, which basically means nobody will ever see it. They bury it. So, it sucks that it's like that. But I really want to show guys what it does, but there's no way to do it anymore on YouTube.
I'll tell you a little trick. My bro Tim taught me. I'll tell you a little trick. So the algorithm listens to the first 15 to 20 seconds of your video and randomly through it. And if you use the word safety check, I'm going to teach you about safety. It won't age restrict it because they think you're teaching about proper safety.
Unless they've already flagged you. So everything that I upload automatically becomes age restricted and non-monetized, and I have to ask for manual review, and then they restrict and then demonetize it.
Right.
But I have my darkworldofoptics.com website where I can also do videos that I upload it differently. I'm doing Odyssey. I'm going to stay on YouTube and Facebook for as long as I can, but my basic assumption is they'll boot me off in the not too distant future. So I've had backup.
Yeah.
So, all right. Let's see what we got. All right. Figure I'll ask this while there's a lot of knowledge present. What's the best shorty scope for 6mm ARC AR-15? I have a Zico 420, but looking for something a little cheaper for this build. Shorty is there are not a ton of inexpensive short scopes, honestly. If you really want something short, EOTech 5-25 by 50 is serviceable. It's not as ECO, but for the money, it's perfectly respectable.
You're talking about the Voodoo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's not bad. Okay. I'd probably, if that's the magnification range you're looking at, I'd probably look there. Everything else will start getting longer. Okay, guys, I just got a work call that I missed. I'm gonna turn myself off for a second. I'll ask you to bullshit about something, and there was a question specific to.
Joe and I can bullshit all night, so it's no problem.
All right, take this one. There are a few others that I need to address, and I'll touch on that for a moment. I'll remove myself from the video stream for a minute, okay?
Okay.
All right.
Right. The floor is yours, gentlemen. The question is about AccuPower 2.5 to 10 by 56 as being a very, very good low light scope. Why is nobody talking about it? Take it away.
Want to hit that one, Joe?
Well, for me, Ilya and I talked about it the podcast, that there's certain companies that we have and not necessarily relationships with, but that we deal with more regularly. And for me, there's several companies that I wish that either, would recognize my channel or reach out to me. And I do email them. I just never hear back. Trigicon's one of them. And it's one of the ones that, you don't hear much about them on my channel. But the reason is I never get any feedback from them. I actually met these guys at the Dallas Safari Club right at the start of the COVID. And, it was one of those things, we'll be in touch. We're going to holler at you on down the line. And I've never heard anything else. And I looked at their stuff and it was nice. I mean, a lot of that stuff's coming out light, like everybody else's, but it was nice. And, that 10 mile and so many of the other scopes, but that's the reason I don't talk about them much is I don't have experience with them. And I'd rather just say, hell, I don't know, than to just talk out of my ass. There's so much of that online that I would rather just, the smartest thing I think I can say at times is I got nothing or I don't know, than just spitballing on the Trigicons. I don't have anything, Brian, what about you?
Well, I think there comes down to a couple things about the Trigicon. They have government contracts, and they don't really care if Joe reviews it. Okay, we don't sell any. Well, I don't know. The Marine Corps is going to buy 10,000 scopes this year from us.
Right.
We have a military contract, so that doesn't mean that they're making bad scopes. It's the same problem that I have with the Dedal. It's how do you get this stuff to market, and do you care? I don't think Trigicon really cares. When I talk to them at SHOT Show, I almost feel like they're just there just because they feel like they're supposed to be, not because they really want. Not that they're in business to sell. I'm not throwing shade at Trigicon. I think they're a great company, make great products, everything else. I just think that when you have a military contract, your master is that. You do not want to do anything to disrupt that. So if that means that you need to produce things for them, everything else is going to take a backseat. And I think that they leverage that to sell their other stuff. That's what I would do. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I think that's why you probably don't see a lot about Trigicon, because they're not sponsoring shooters that much. They don't need to. They're not sponsoring channels like Joe's, because they don't need to.
Right.
because they have a different set of priorities.
Yeah. I would say the same thing about EOTech. They're the same way, you know. And don't get me wrong, when you meet these guys in person, I mean, they're super freaking nice. They're just as cordial and polite and knowledgeable as you could ever hope for. But at the same time, it's like, dude, just go, you know, you're on social media. We could give a shit. You know, if you walked in here with with a Congressional Medal of Honor on your chest, we got you.
Right.
You know, but anything else, you know, they just kind of overlook you. And I think that's the case for a lot of YouTubers. There's so many companies out there that they've established their brand. Night Force comes to mind for me, and I know Ilya doesn't have a good relation with Night Force, and I have kind of a sketchy history with the Night Force scopes that I've owned, but Night Force doesn't need to put their name out there. You know, Lpvo, they don't have to push their stuff. Normally when I get something from Lpvo, it's usually something that's not selling very well. You know, just to be very honest, they're not going to send me their best-selling scopes. You know, there's no reason to promote them. And for a lot of the other companies, you know, they're trying to establish a brand. They're trying to make their footprint, you know, so they want a lot of chatter. They want a lot of talk about their products, but Trigicon's one of those, they don't need it. They really don't, you know, and the best way I know how to say is they don't give a shit, but not in a negative way. It's just like what you say doesn't mean anything. You know, Brian and Ilya and I, all three have YouTube channels. And if somebody leaves a negative comment, it's like, oh, well, you know, you don't take it personally. It's just, oh, well, that's what happened with this guy. Didn't like it, you know. But, you got anything to add on that?
Well, I didn't listen to most of what you said. Sorry, I had to get on the phone.
Well, you didn't miss anything.
Yeah. There are a couple of things. AccuPower, this kind of scopes, is a very small part of what Trigicon does. And it is in kind of an aging design. And they have their distribution channels set up so it's not a new product. They don't need to push it. It kind of has its following and they sell it. It works okay. The catch is that it's in the same general price and size range. There are new scopes that are really, really good. And so there is very, very strong competition there.
Yeah.
And for Trigicon, there isn't really that much to gain from marketing this aggressively. It probably will not affect their sales too much.
Yeah.
Right. You could see what they're pushing. They're doing a ton with the red dot sights, RMR and stuff. They're doing a ton with thermals. You know, I do some stuff with Trigicon, right? So I talk to them quite a lot. I'm friendly with the director of engineering and a few other people. And it's they're a big company, and the biggest part of their profit margin is not an AccuPower, right? It's just that. So, okay, have we exhausted this one?
Yep, I think we kicked that one down the curb.
Yeah.
Let's see. So we've got that. So there's a question on the price point of the Russian scopes. I think Brian has covered that. Okay. Ooh, I'm about to get myself into trouble a little more. Mr. Gas Sportsman 90 will be running a thermal clip-on and doing day shooting anywhere from 50 to 1,000 yards, looking at scopes such as Leupold Mark V 3 to 18 and Night Force NX8 2.5 to 20. Would love to hear your thoughts. I did not like the NX8 scopes, and I think 2.5 to 20 is the weakest of the line. If those are the two you're looking at, get the Mark V in a nutshell. If you want to spend some money, get this March 4.5 to 28 by 52. It's better, but a little bit more money. That's basically it. Honestly, that EOTech Voodoo 5 to 25 by 50, I wouldn't run it over 20 power, but under 20 it is very competent. And if you're running a thermal clip-on, it's very short. It's not a bad way to go. So I'd be looking in this field. Anything you want to add, guys?
No, I like the EOTech, whatever the regular was, 3 to 18.
Yeah, 3 to 18 is very good. 5 to 25 is just stupid short.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. Okay, so I'm assuming the questions about springers. This why? How do you pronounce this? WEIH, the long German thing.
Y-Rock.
Weihrock.
Yikes. Okay, I assume it's a Springer.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
All right. Has anybody tried to destroy an SWFA 6-power scope with one?
No, they're indestructible. The fixed powers, SWFAs. Now you can call Chris or Christopher, and we all know them, or the three of us on the screen know, and they'll tell you their variable powers are not rated for springers, but all their fixed powers are. And I mean, I know one guy that had one SWFA come apart that was a fixed power, but I only know one, and I know a shitload of springer shooters.
Good. I guess that answers your question.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Do optics with larger objectives have shallower depth of field? All other things being equal, yes. But what gives it a shallower depth of field is a combination of what's happening with the erector system and with the objective and all that. For the objective lens system, yeah, if it's the same length scope with a larger objective, it will have shallower depth of field. But that's not the only thing in place, so other things can limit it also. I'll give you an example, right? So let's say you have a variable power rifle scope. Will the depth of field be shallower on top magnification than bottom magnification? Yes, no? Joe,
yes,
Brian?
me or Brian or
both of you.
It can. I'll put it like that.
It always is. On the high magnification, it's always shallower depth of field than the low magnification, right?
Yeah.
But the objective lens did not change. So what changed was the settings of the erector system, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So that means that the erector system will be the limiting factor in that case. Right? So you do not know, depending on what setting the scope is on, you don't know what's limiting your depth of field, whether it's the objective or the erector or the eyepiece or whatever else.
Yeah.
But generally, yes, large objective, shallow depth of field. Didn't mean to. Well, no, I did mean to put you on the spot. Never mind.
No, do your thing, man. I'll live.
I always do. I have no shame. You know that. USSR. I think that means USSR optics were German optics. After World War II, yes, they stole Zeiss Jena equipment and scientists into Soviet Union. And
German influence on their scopes.
Yeah. Well, so it's not a terribly well-known fact, but right before Germany attacked Russia in World War II, in June of 1941, Stalin and Hitler really liked each other. They got along great. They shared expertise. Germans sent their scientists in Russia. Russians sent their oil and raw products to Germany. It was, like a Brokeback Mountain, Eastern European style, right?
Yeah.
Are you okay, Joe? Usually you do that to me, okay? So usually Joe says something and I need a new keyboard after that. So this was very satisfying. That having been said, right? So 1939, Stalin and Hitler divided Poland between the two of them, right? Attacked at the same time on both sides. There's all sorts of stuff happening. This learning how to do rifle scopes from the Germans started actually before World War II. But after World War II, they, before the Americans were able to get there, they basically loaded up half of Zeiss Jena equipment and people and moved them east. So that was the origin of Soviet optics, but it developed quite a lot from there. Oh, Joe, this is for you. I'm guessing not using a manual pump, but anything is possible.
What's it say?
Also, Joe, how do you pump PCP air pistols?
With a tank.
So, Brian, would you point to a tank behind you, please?
Yeah, right there.
Yeah. Anybody that's ever used a pump, the instant use a tank. As a matter of fact, I've got a $300 pump in the closet in there somewhere, gathering dust.
Yeah.
And you can go to a scuba shop and buy one of the aluminum tanks for about $100 used that are not outdated.
Guys, for the first 5 or 6 years of my PCP experience, I used the manual pump. I gained 30 pounds when I stopped. And I stopped because of this. Hold on.
Oh, you're a tough son of a bitch, because I had one of those heel, I think it was heel pumps.
Yeah.
Was pumping up. Actually, you were talking about it earlier. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Anybody has seen one of these before?
I have.
Yeah.
And,
it's terrible for my waistline, but I get to do a lot more shooting with PCPs.
For sure.
Yeah. I used to hand pump Air Force Talon.
Yeah, that's the one. That was my Talon SS. That's the one
I would reach the point where it's like I don't want to shoot it because I don't want to have to pump it.
Right.
I used to have it was a lot like when I had a 300 Weatherby. I would put off races to shoot it because I didn't want to deal with the recoil.
Right,
I believe it.
The same way.
Yeah, I believe it.
And if you are going to buy a pump, I do know the heel is a really good one. It's a really good pump.
Which one?
Heel.
Okay,
and I don't remember where I got it. I think I got it from Airgun Depot.
Yeah,
I think that's the name of it. Brian, does that sound right?
Yeah, hill pump. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good pump. It's just do you want to deal with it?
I have some sort of an Air Venturi manual pump, something like that.
Yeah.
G7, something like that.
No.
Yeah. I still have it. I use it. So I still use a manual pump occasionally. I'm one of those exceedingly weird people, but neither one of you will be surprised by that. I spend a lot of time trying to figure out how I will shoot when I'm winded, tired, and all that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. But instead of trying to go uphill and shoot something there and have the police called on me, I take the freaking pump it up, and then go shoot and count after, depending how I look at my heart rate. My watch has a heart rate monitor. I look at my heart rate and try to figure out at what heart rate, how do I shoot.
Do your thing, man.
Yeah.
I've suffered so much because of my OCD, you have no idea.
I'm married to somebody just like that.
Yeah, not my type, Joe. Don't even ask. All right. I recently read a couple of how much does Meopta Meostar 3R2, 2.5 to 15 by 56, suffer from not having a parallax adjustment of hunting out to 300 to 400 yards. So first of all, there are now 2 models of Meostar R2. One of them does have parallax adjustment. A bunch of people complained. Out to 300-400 yards, it doesn't really make that much difference, but it does when you go further out. Okay. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that scope, but Meopta Meostar R1 and R2 are probably the biggest reason why 3G and AccuPower is not that popular.
Oh,
because the R1 is in that same general range. It's 3 to 12 by 56. It's really good.
Oh, yeah. I'm a big fan of those scopes.
Okay. Let's see. Another centerfire. Brian, I don't know. Do you do centerfire rifles too much, or do you mostly do air guns?
No, I do centerfire. I started there.
Okay.
I went backwards. I didn't start with air guns. I found air guns by accident, or not by accident, by there was a need for me to get into them. I got long story short, I got a permission on a golf course to go whack squirrels and other critters.
Mm.
And 22 long rifle wasn't.
Be right back, guys.
Wasn't
absolutely
was not in the cards. So that's kind of how I discovered it.
Oh, I see.
And I discovered Ed because I went out there with this English gun that was like 10 feet long, and the guy says, "Hey, you can't be out here with that. We have $1 million homes looking at the golf course." So I found this crazy Russian shooting crows out of his car. This is literally, I swear, this is how I found Ed. I was just looking around, and I don't know how the hell I came up with him, but this guy's driving around what looked like Moscow, rolling down with his buddy, and he doesn't make these videos anymore because now he's a serious businessman. But back then, he would roll down his window, they would say something in Russian, laugh, and shoot a crow. And there was a video, this famous video, and Ed, I asked him, I begged him to put it back up, and he's like, "No, I'm not going to do it." But he shoots this crow, and this Russian lady, walks by, looks at the crow, doesn't even skip a beat, sees this crow die right in front of him, and just keeps walking. Not my problem.
So which air gun was that? Was it like a Lola or
the R2 and a half?
R2. Okay.
Yeah, this little tiny bullpup, and I thought, man, this thing's perfect. and the rest is history, so to speak. But that's how I found
cool.
it. Yeah.
Very cool. So for the record, I don't have any personal experience with Edgun. Well, once again, I've always ignored Russian products, but Brian has convinced me that I may be overlooking something. I grew up in Russia. I discriminate against Russians.
I know. Russians are the biggest Russian haters.
Pretty much. But anyhow, to answer the question is, what would you recommend for lightweight hunting target shooting scope to go on a SIG cross? For example, 1K, 2K, and 3K mark, assuming you want good optics, but want to keep the weight down. So I don't have a SIG cross. I have the Fix by Q, which is sort of what cross tries to compete against. In the 3K range, your best bet is actually this. This is March 3 to 24 by 52. It's about 24 ounces. And of the scopes of this type, that's the best. Going down to about, if you want to go a little bit higher up, the new March 4.5 to 28 by 52 is the best. March really does this lightweight thing really, really well. So it will come up quite a bit. In a 2K range, really look at Lpvo Mark 5, 3.6 to 18 by 44. I think they did a good job with that one. I didn't like the Mark 6. Mark 5 is very good. At 1500, there is the Element Nexus 5 to 20 by 50. I don't know if you, Brian, have looked at it. I know Joe has. That's a very, very solid scope.
Yeah.
At 1K, it gets a little bit tricky because front focal plane compact crossover scopes in that range almost don't exist. There is one that's almost out, but I can't talk about it until it's announced. I'm going sheep hunting with that scope in 2 weeks, sitting on the Fix by Q. I will, let's see if I can show you what that scope looks like. No, I can't. No, right. No, they won't let me. So when it's announced, I'll talk about it. It's going to be under 1500, I think. So that would probably be a good choice. Honestly, if I had 1K and weight was important, I'd get the Vortex Razor HDLHT 3 to 15 by 42. It's second focal plane, so you have to deal with that. But it's comparatively light. It's optically very good. And it tracks perfectly. So I would be leaning in that general direction. It'll do most what you need with front focal plane scopes. Under there, if you can do less magnification. I love doing this when I just reach over and get a scope. Like, you guys have no idea how many, like, Brian sells scopes, and I'm pretty sure I have a lot more scopes here than he does. So this is primary arms, 2.5 to 10 by 44, front focal plane. Turrets, decent reticle, not a lot of magnification, very solid scope, and that's actually a good crossover design. Honestly, I mean, in many ways, the best crossover design, but you will spend $4,000 on this, is this guy. It's a Tangent Theta, 3 to 15 by 50, 30 millimeter tube. That's like $3,800, something like that. It is incredible. This is the second one ever made. You know, the first one the company owner has, I have the second one. I've used it forever. Someday it will be prized from my cold, dead hands, but that day is not today. So that's basically the lineup. But you really need to figure out if you want front focal plane or second focal plane, and you need to figure out what kind of reticle would work for you. Is there somebody at my... Okay, my daughter is here. I think they're going back to sleep. Hold on.
No, Daniel kind of feels hot. Is it okay if I give him Tylenol? He's kind of dizzy and he has a kind of a headache. Is it okay if I give him Tylenol?
I need to go check on my kids. I'm going to pull up another question.
All right.
And I'm going to go...
to the $1,000 one, but go ahead and pull up the next question.
Okay, you know what? How about you guys discuss this one then? And I'm going to be back in a moment. My wife is out of town, so the kids are on me. Hold on.
Okay. Then I know this is just me and Brian now, but for me, the crap, I brain farted on. What's that Delta that's under the striker?
Oh, the titanium.
Yeah, that's a badass. That is a.
I'd agree. Yeah.
And I mean, actually, when Brian and I first started talking about doing when he was going to import the Deltas, I was telling him I'd had the titaniums, and they're super, super badass scopes. I mean, they're it's one of those scopes I wish I had more of them to do reviews on, and I wish it was more popular here in the States, but it's one of those scopes when people see it for the first time, they're like, oh, hell yeah, I got to have that. You know, the Delta stuff is one of the few scope lines, I would say, from top to bottom are great value, whether it's their budget scope or the striker. I think every single one of them, the Javelin, all of everything that I've ever owned that was a Delta hit, and I think Ilya was one of the ones that I first heard say this, hits above their weight class, and the Delta definitely does that shit.
For sure. I mean, I'm an importer of the Delta because you told me about them, and I was like, you know, like I had mentioned in the beginning of this live cast, is that I wanted something different. And Joe told me about them, and I tell you, the quality of them is absolutely outrageous. And Greg from Delta, I met with him several times at the SHOT Show, and I speak to him regularly, and he's awesome. He handles warranty claims, which there haven't been that many. For the volume of scopes that I have sold in the United States, the amount of warranty claims have been just absolutely incredibly low on this scope. So even at the lower end stuff, and you know, I sell a lot of the LVPOs from Delta, which is the striker line of that.
Yeah, the 1-6.
1-6, which by the way is coming out. I should have them in tomorrow, the next day in Mill, which is going to be new because they used to be Mill MOA. So those are going to be new. But yeah, I would agree with that titanium line is pretty unbelievable. And I think a lot of times people are afraid of a second focal plane, but I'm not really sure why. You know, because here's the funny thing about it. I sell a lot of first focal planes too, and I like them for a lot of different reasons. But one thing that I will say is, like, when you see something like 4.5 to 30, and people always ask me, you know, like, oh, you know, how is that at 30? And I said, honestly, at 30, you're really using it as a spotting scope, kind of, because the reticle is kind of unusable at 30 or 50 or whatever it is in first focal plane. Actually, I don't know if there is a 50, but in the case of the Deltas, it's a 4.5 by 30 on their top end one. And people I find use the first focal plane between 8 and 15, 8 and 18, because the reticle starts getting too thick. So I think if you're looking at something that wants a lot of magnification, a second focal plane really makes a lot of sense. But people are afraid of it because, you know, that's not what quote unquote snipers use. You know, when you're looking at rapid acquisition, which let's be honest, none of us really need that. I wouldn't be afraid of a second focal plane for a lot of good reasons. One of them is the reticle stays nice and thin, and it's precise, even at high magnification.
Yeah. Well, as guys can imagine, I don't know how many freaking videos I got on my channel, way too many. But, you know, the majority of the scopes that I get, I'm not paid for them, but I get to keep the scopes. And for guys that ask me, what do you carry on your personal gun? And we're talking about air guns also. On my Edgun, what's sitting on top of it is a Delta 5 to 50 second focal plane. Now, I virtually can put most any scope I want on it, but you put that 5 to 50, go out to the range at 50 yards, and a 17 caliber, you know, bullet hole looks that big. I mean, when it comes to aiming precise, it is spooky, absolutely terrifying. And both of these guys on screen can say when you reach a certain magnification, regardless of what scope it is, the image goes down. You know, there's just no way around it. You know, the image is going to start coming to pieces. But for the price that it is, that Delta 5 to 50 is an absolute badass. Now, I rarely use it higher than about 30. But, you know, I love using the second focal plane on my air guns. And I know that sounds odd, but on my air guns, I normally don't shoot the longer distance. So I want to aim at little bitty shit. And I want to aim as precise as I can. And the best way for me to do that is with the second focal planes.
It's a reasonable. So, see, I shoot differently from a lot of you guys. I shoot better on 15 power than 50 power. but I shoot. It's so uncommon for me to shoot with everything supported. It's not even fun. Usually only the front is supported. Sometimes nothing is really supported, right? I shoot a lot from weird ass positions, and I'm not that good. So I don't shoot on very high
that's
power.
A lie. That's a lie. But
What?
go ahead.
What is a lie? You've never seen me shoot?
No, I've seen videos of you shooting. You're asking shooting, so can Brian. So y'all quit lying about that.
Okay.
Go ahead. Buddy.
I'm not lying. I'm very friendly with David Tubb. I know I suck. It all depends on who you are friendly with, right? I'm friendly with David Tubb. I've got a buddy who was a head coach of the Russian Olympic shooting team, But anyhow, the way I shoot, I need the magnification to look at conditions more so than for shooting.
Mm-hmm.
And then I dial it down, right? It's one of the big reasons why I lean so strongly toward front focal plane scopes. But if you want to use a front focal plane scope across the entire range, the reticle needs to be designed for it. And most of them are not, right? I did it, I believe I did it the right way. For example, on these March scopes, I designed the reticle for these guys for the way I shoot. So it does not get in my way on high magnification and still visible on low magnification, right?
Yeah.
But you have to design the reticle in that way. And most companies do. They just have some pattern that somebody designed. They just slap it on everything and move on, right? And that's not a good way. Not a good way of doing this, right? Okay, have we exhausted this one?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move along. Oh yeah, just for the record. So at 2K mark, Brian is bringing in some competition. While I was gone, I went on the Dedal website and I looked a little bit of how heavy those scopes are. That 3 to 12 by 50 is not very heavy. It's going to be an interesting crossover design.
Yeah.
So it will play right there in the 2K mark, and it sounds like it has good glass, so it's going to be interesting to see. Okay. More Springer stuff that I do not understand. I think that was an answer to somebody else's question, so I'll skip over that. Okay. Thoughts on Steiner AM series optics? How do they compete with the other brands? Okay, you guys have any experience with this? Should I take this quickly?
Go ahead and take it, man. I've got a real Steiner left a bad taste in my mouth, so you go ahead.
So
yeah, I'm going to stay away from this one too.
Yeah, so I'm friendly with the Steiner CTO. He's a good dude, and they make generally good stuff. But Steiner always has early birthing pains, right? They seem to have a bad luck introducing something, then I have to fix it. Steiner M7, that's the latest, is actually a good scope. The 4 to 28 by 56 is a good scope. Early ones had chromatic aberrations, then they got it figured out. My basic problem with Steiner is reticles. They have MSR, which is a good reticle. And if you want a 3 reticle, you have to have that Horus nonsense. Like, Horus reticle is basically a retired mosquito net designer's wet dream.
Mm-hmm.
Just a bad idea.
Yeah.
Or mechanically, the M5s and M7s have always been very, very solid. Optically, M5 was a little bit behind the competition. M7 at their roughly 3K mark is very good. However, it's not better than the competition. Where the Steiner M series scopes do really well, if you want an integrated ballistic solver, their IFS system, intelligent or integrated whatever firing solution, I think it is the best one on the market now. And the interface is very good. I spent a lot of time with it. So if I were looking at Steiner M, I would spend the money and get the IFS version. They do electro-optical integration really, really well. So if you go Steiner, I'll lean that way. As a pure optomechanical design, I think you can do a little bit better for the money. But once you put electronics in there, Steiner is a force to reckon with. Make sense?
I'm with you.
All right. Mr. Northwest Guns, Derek is here. Welcome,
Hey,
Derek.
how's it going, buddy?
Good to have you here, my friend.
That's a great YouTube channel, by the way.
I like Derek. He's a good dude.
Oh, there's Terry. How's it going, Terry?
Okay, who's Terry?
Offhand Air Gunner. He's got
Okay.
a really good channel.
Okay, Offhand Air Gunner. I'll subscribe. I've never heard of you before.
Oh,
I apologize.
He and Dane at Mountain Sport Air Guns, they do some of the best video footage you'll ever see on outdoor.
Oh, that's
channel.
very cool. Well, I'm assuming that Eastern European style refers to Dedal scopes, not to me, but we'll see. Mr. Pupu and Crutch, how far are we from having reliable electric shockproof auto-ranging military-grade optics for basic soldiers? 20 years, the only investment in firearms tech I see coming. They're here now. You just can't buy them, but I've used them. That's all. It's all I'll tell you. Always, when you ask questions like this, always keep in mind what I do for a living. Mr. Offhand Air Gunner. Will an Lpvo scope be okay for hunting with a PCP Bullpup airgun? I mean, Joe may have more experience with this, but I don't see why not. It really depends on what you mean by hunting, right? If you get a 1 to 10 low power variable scope and you bump it up on 10 power, and if you want something to be in sharp focus at 10 yards, then no, it's not going to work, right?
Right.
If you're okay dialing magnification down when you're out of focus, then it will work fine. Otherwise, you basically need a low power variable with a side focus, and for that, March is the only game in town. If I were willing to spend the money, I don't know what budget you're looking at, and I wanted a low power variable for hunting on an air gun, I'd probably splurge for one of the Marches. They have 3 different models with side focus and go that way. Joe?
No, I'm with you 100%, man.
Yeah. Okay. Derek, Northwest Air Guns. Is the Delta optics better than the Element optics?
Yeah.
No. Not better, but not worse either, right? It's a little bit of an apples to oranges because they don't make a ton of stuff that's directly comparable. But in their price ranges, both Element and Delta do really, really well. And I'll let you guys talk about it. And, so I maintain a list of recommendations. I update once or twice a year. And Element Nexus and Delta Striker, for example, are both on it. And there is a reason for it.
Yeah.
But they are slightly differently sized and configured scopes.
Well, the Element, there's 3 different lines. The Nexus is, I think, an exceptional scope. It's lightweight. It's a great scope. The other 2 Element scopes, I can name it. Just me personally, and I do more of the budget or moderately priced reviews than Ilya that, I'm even an optical designer. Of course, he gets to do some of the best stuff in the world. But the budget Element scopes, other than the Nexus, there's a lot of scopes I would recommend in front of them. And is the Delta better in the budget scopes? Absolutely. On the Nexus, it would just depend. I mean, if you wanted, just me, I would buy the Delta before I would buy the Nexus. But if I wanted something that was a little lighter weight, then I think the Element's a really nice scope. I really do. And I mean, it tracked perfect. It's great glass. But their budget scopes, I'm not impressed by in any way.
Have you looked at the 6 to 24 FFP, the lower end one? What's it called?
I have the Helix.
Helix. I actually like the FFP Helix quite a bit. Mechanically, it's probably the best sub 500 variable Chinese scope I've seen.
Yeah. See, for me, it was just the opposite. I did the second focal plane and the first focal plane. Neither one will return to 0.
How interesting. I have a front focal. It's been absolutely flawless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's common with budget scopes. There's a big variation.
That is very true. Yeah. So I know the OEM who makes them, and they generally do a good job, right? So we'll see if that continues. But the Nexus I use, and it's sitting on my 22 that I shoot a lot, and it's done quite well. Do you have any hands-on time with the Element scopes, Brian?
Yeah, actually, I just started carrying them.
Okay, good. Which ones did you pick up?
So, I'm a high-end scope guy, so I'll probably carry the Nexus and the low-end one just to have a wide gap. I think the middle one, I've already got stuff that kind of covers that. But, I think they're good for air guns, too, because of the parallax issue with them. That's what makes them kind of unique. To me, I think too that I don't know. You could argue either way, but I think one of the mistakes a lot of companies make is they offer too many things, and I've noticed because I've done it on my website. I've offered way too many things, and you get into a paralysis. The customer gets into a paralysis, not understanding. And I'm just not a huge fan of those horror style reticles. I hate them. I don't. I understand for an air gun the idea of wanting to dope for wind, but honestly, I don't know if holding over and doping for wind is a great thing. You're now running two different variables. So if you're going to do that, why don't you just dope the turret and hold for wind? That's my personal opinion. But I know people would argue with that, but I think, to me, I want to remove one of the variables. And if I can remove the vertical dope, that's easy to do. I can do the math on that, even though I'm American.
Yeah,
I hear you, man.
I'll be the judge of that.
Yeah. Go with your American ass, man.
It's couldn't resist.
I hit that because Ed, one time I did something. I said, "Hey, is this going to be the price?" And he says, "It's true what they say about Americans. You guys suck at math."
Yeah.
Americans don't suck at math. American educational system sucks at math. It's not the same.
Yeah. Thank you, Ilya.
I'm
not an idiot. It's the education system that makes
guys, you have no. So when I came here, I went to high school. I went after a couple of days. I went and politely inquired from the principal if I accidentally was put into school for retarded children.
What do you guys moron correction class, right? Moron correction school?
No, it was perfect normal school. I joke, of course, but it's. I'm not big on conspiracy theories, but I will say this: if there is one conspiracy theory out there that truly is correct, it is the American education system. It is designed to take perfectly capable children and make them into morons. And it's a miracle that somebody comes out of it with a brain. It is awful. You guys don't understand. This is awful. This is so awful. It is so bad. I have two preteen kids going through this bullshit right now. It is insane. But that's a topic for another video. I can talk about that for a long time.
Yeah. Did you guys cover the Lpvo for hunting with a BP? I see that. I missed that.
Yes, we did. Okay. You want to touch on that?
Yeah, I think they're fantastic. I think they're overlooked a lot. I'll tell you, one of the things that I always run into, and this is the number one question I get, is what's the parallax? And it's funny because air gunners always hit me up. They want this crazy magnification. It's going to decrease your field of view or incredibly low with this parallax that goes down to 3 meters. And I think to myself, if there's only a scope that everyone used at 5 to 7 meters, only if there was one, oh, that's right, there is an Lpvo. Everybody uses them right now at 1x. What do you need if you're shooting 5 meters? Why do you need 25x to go down to 3 meters? I don't understand it. I mean, what are we looking at?
Brian, you have so Joe and I talked about this when you were off. I see this all the time. People buy a 1 to 10 Lpvo, set it on 10 power, never budget from there, and when they're aiming at something 10 meters away, it's going to be blurry.
Yeah.
Lower the magnification.
That's it.
That's basically my take on it.
I wasn't even here, and I knew what you guys were talking about because we all agree on the same thing.
Yeah. No, it's use the right tool, yes, but also use the right tool correctly. Okay, so question about right-on. I will say so I've never tested any right-on scopes. I plan to this year. I've been chatting with the director of marketing. He's a good dude.
Jeremiah? Jeremiah?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah, he is a good dude.
Yeah, he's an entertaining guy. So I'm going to look at some, but I'm kind of overworked right now, so probably closer to the summer. I've got a sheep hunt in a couple of weeks, and I'm going to go to Alaska, do a black bear hunt in June, and when I come back from that, I want to look at the 2 or 3 right-on scopes. Have you tested them, Joe?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I've got a right-on video that'll be public Saturday. Now, it's the X1, their budget, but I've looked at a lot of the right-ons, and I've actually tested several of the scopes that are no longer on YouTube because they were on top of a black rifle. So, but yeah, I honestly, I think for the price range and for what they offer some cool stuff. And one of the things I really like about them is they still offer a pretty decent selection of second focal point. So that's something I'm really impressed with what they're doing, they're not just jumping on the first focal plane wagon with everything else. That they actually have some pretty decent second focal plane stuff. As a matter of fact, I think the one that's going to be public Saturday is a second focal plane.
Okay.
But after a while, you do so many scope reviews that kind of blur together. But the Ride-On is one of those companies.
You need a little bit more OCD. Maybe we should do a blood transfusion from me to you.
Yeah.
You'll get just as crazy.
Yeah,
I remember every single one I did.
Yeah, they're one of those companies like a Tract, where I think they're offering a lot of bang for the buck type thing. And the Ride-Ons, from what I've used so far, they've all worked fine. And they're a solid company. Now the X7, I actually have one here. I don't remember if it's that magnification, and I'll have the review up here probably within a month or two. I'm usually right now I'm about 2 months behind from the time I get a product in till I actually get the video done.
Yeah, it's longer than that for me. So I have not seen that specific scope, but I have seen that OEM model from a couple other makers. It generally tracks. So if it says 46 mils of travel, my general recommendation, never hit the adjustment range all the way to the rail. So if it says 46, use 40. Don't go all the way to the edge. And within those 40, it should be fine.
Yeah. Okay. I also know they're fixing they actually have a facility in Arizona, and they're going to be doing like Lpvo. They're going to be assembling and they're outsourcing a lot of stuff, but they're actually going to be employing some people to build those scopes in Arizona here in the next couple of months.
Are you talking about the 1-8?
All of them.
All of them, okay. Because I know the 1-8 that's currently built in the US is actually not built in Arizona, but they were gearing up for it.
Right. But they're going to be assembling all this stuff here in the US now, which
good for them. Yeah, I think it's good. Yeah. Okay. All right, that's an interesting question. Have your kids ever asked mom, why does daddy have Russian accent? Is he a commie? So how do I answer this question without getting demonetized? It's not so simple. Okay. So I have a Russian accent. My wife has an Israeli accent. So my kids are just sufficiently confused where they don't think there's anything wrong with that. And they don't yet know what a commie is. So probably not so much. All right. Oh, we actually have an optics question, not the Russian accent question.
They do think he's a bad guy from a movie, though. That they do know that.
They don't.
Every movie ever.
They don't know that. They do know that the parents of some of their friends, I sort of set their teeth on edge, but it has nothing to do with the accent. All right. Are doctor sites still compatible with Zeiss? I don't know what compatible with Zeiss means, and doctor sites don't exist anymore. Doctor Optics was purchased by Noblex. Now they're called Noblex scopes. That's what used to be Zeiss Sienna. They're very respectable scopes. I don't know what compatible with Zeiss means. If you mean competitive with Zeiss, well, Zeiss has been sort of going to shit lately, so Noblex makes pretty decent scope for the most part. But you have to be more specific. If you tell me which product lines you're looking at, I may be able to address that. Have you guys messed with Doctor or Noblex scopes lately?
I haven't.
Yeah, they have very little presence in the US. I used to look at them a little bit, but we'll see. Okay, so Pippin and Crutch. Yes, working behind the counter, I find a lot of old fart hunters buy 6 to 30 scopes for deer hunting when shots are only 200 yards and under. Not sure they know how to adjust parallax. That sounds about right. I see this quite a bit. One of the most common and so stupid sentiments I see with people is that, I'm getting older. My eyes are not as good as they used to be. I need more magnification. No. If you're getting older and your eyes are not as good as they used to be, the last thing you need is more magnification. What you need is a better scope, right? Your Leupold VX-2 hailing from 1986 ain't cutting it anymore because it was good in 1986. It's not that good anymore. You can do better. Don't go bumping up magnification too much, though.
Yeah.
Right. I see this all the time. It's really nice. It's really nuts. I mean, it's crazy. You guys see this as well?
All the time.
All the time. I get the question all the time. I don't see as well as I used to.
Yeah.
Get a
As
better
a matter
scope.
of fact, on my channel, if one of the scope companies reach out to me and they have a 6-30 or they have a 4-20, 3-18 version, I always tell them send the lower magnification version because it's easier for me to get the camera set up. And it's easier to get a clear picture through it.
Yeah.
You know, the higher the magnification, everything just starts getting tough fast.
Yeah, that is absolutely correct. Okay.
And it shows every flaw in the optic and the design.
Yeah. All right. You all mentioned H59 reticle. I actually didn't. I said Horus. I wasn't specific about H59. The reason I like them is because I actually max out the turrets and need the holdover, one consideration. Yeah, so I do this quite a lot. For example, on this scope, this is tangent data, it gives me, after zero stop, a set 12 milliradian in the turret. And I will max that out, and there is another 10 milliradian in the reticle. I don't need 30 milliradian in the reticle, right? But you know what? If H59 works for you, go for it, right? If you know what you're doing, it all works. It doesn't matter. Now, one of my biggest problems with Horus reticles is that they sold everyone with the idea that it's easier to use. And there's so many problems with those designs. I see so many people unable to hit the barn from the inside with those reticles because they're so confused they're aiming with the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Then there is a basic problem is that if the reticle goes all the way to the edges, your parallax is not set, distortion moves your point of aim. It was really designed originally for machine guns, for basically general cone of fire. It's not for precision shooting. You do not want to be aiming outside the center about 1/3 of the field of view if you're going for precision. Right? If the reticle extends all the way to the edge, do not use that part. Okay. Especially in low magnifications. Okay, I've got a question for Brian. Brian, I see you carry Vector optics scopes. What are your thoughts on the Vector Continental line? What does the Continental glass compare to? Is it better than Swamp Fox?
Well, I don't know about Swamp Fox. I don't have any experience with that. I will tell you that I sell a lot of Vector scopes, and I get very few returns, which is quite amazing for a Chinese scope at the price range that they are. And I think they're very good scopes for the money. If you're looking for something, you're on a budget. I will tell you that my number one selling scope is not the Continental, but it's the Veyron line. In particular, the 3-12 and the 4-16 Veyrons, because they're compact scopes.
Mm-hmm.
Built very similarly to the US Optics TX12, and they're a good scope with very few returns, which is amazing. And Joe knows this more than anybody else because I've complained to him. I've been through how many Chinese manufacturers have I been through, Joe? That
I can't tell you, man.
A dozen, at least a dozen.
At least that I can think of.
And I ended up staying with the Vector Optics because of the fact that as a small business, I can't afford a ton of returns. The Chinese are going to leave you holding the bag a lot of times when you are the importer of them, and because they're just the way it is. So that's kind of goes with the territory of bringing in a Chinese scope. They're just going to leave you with the warranty work, and with the Vectors, I don't get very much at all, actually. The only thing I get is the number one thing is I think a lot of people go, I can't see the reticle at 3x. I'm like, well, it's a first focal point.
Yeah. Well, and something else that I think is really cool about Vector, and like say on my channel, I deal a lot with budget scopes, but there's actually a spot in Utah that you can get in touch with somebody. You don't have to send it back over to Hing Bing province or wherever it is, and it's going to cost you more to ship it back than it's worth. There's actually a place in Utah, and I know Brian was instrumental in that, but there's actually a place in Utah that deals with if there are any warranty problems, they deal with it. So guys that buy it, for Brian, they get in touch with Brian. Brian can get in touch with the company in Utah, and they deal with it. And that's the reason I know for a fact, because we've talked about it, and I'm not trying to tell tales out of school, but I know that's the reason that you've dropped a lot of the Chinese manufacturers is they just leave you holding the bag, and then, you know, their quality goes to shit, which, you know, was at however high to start with, and they just leave the dealers and distributors, you know, you're just screwed. You're just screwed all the way around. You know, and Vector hadn't been like that. I mean, I've talked to these guys. They're real active online, in social media, and they're real responsive. When you actually, you know, reach out to them, you get an answer. You know, which, like I say, for a Chinese manufacturer is unusual. I'll put it like that.
Okay, so I don't have any experience with vector scopes, but I do have a US Optics TS12 here, which is the same scope. It's I know US Optics does QC in US because I received a sheet that says what they checked and how and all that. And I actually like that little scope quite a lot.
Yeah.
The reticle is thin. I think they didn't design the reticle with 3x in mind. It can be easily modified if they choose to do so, but it is surprisingly functional. I really like that little scope. They need to add single dot illumination to it, basically, and that will resolve all of those reticle visibility questions.
That's coming for the vector. For the vector line is coming.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's good to hear.
Cool.
So, but I've only seen it in the US Optics guys. But the tiny 3 to 12 by 44 is very, very good. I like that scope.
Yeah, I do too.
Surprised me, and I'm very, very seldom surprised. So, no, I know I'm an arrogant jackass, but that's the truth.
Dude, that's part of the reason we love you.
Yeah. Okay. There's somebody by the name of Edgun West here who I always thought was Brian.
Yes, everyone thinks it's me.
No, that's our buddy Tim.
Yeah, everyone thinks that's me. He likes it that way. He likes to stay hidden.
What's the name again?
Edgun West.
No, the guy's name.
Oh,
Tim.
Okay, well, I'll need to get the last name. We'll run a background check.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, his channel just passed 100,000 subscribers.
Damn.
And of all of the gun-related channels that I personally know, a lot of these guys, his grew faster than anybody I've ever seen. I mean,
that is very cool.
God, very cool. His channel is just going insane.
That is very cool.
Yeah.
If I get fired, I'm gonna put more time in my YouTube channel. Let's hope it doesn't happen. All right. Let's see. All right, Pippi and Crutch. How much is that Lpvo you just reviewed? It's a new brand by Armament Technologies. It's a front focal plane 126 by 24 that I just started looking at. I just introduced it. It is around $1,200. It's a Light Optics Works built scope with an interesting reticle. I just got released a video on that a couple of days ago. It's really growing on me. It's a nice scope. I can't show it to you. It's sitting on a gun. If I show a gun, the YouTube goons will storm my house and shoot me. But it's it is. There's nothing revolutionary about that scope, but everything works well. So there's a lot. There's a lot to that.
That's a good video. I like the reticle too.
Yeah, it's an interesting design.
Yeah.
Okay, offhand air gunner. Ask Dana how I missed a jackrabbit running straight towards me while I was on 16x. I think that's pertaining to a discussion of all sorts of unqualified individuals always maxing out scope magnification.
Yeah.
And I don't know who Dana is, but yeah, running jackrabbit on 16x. I'm surprised you saw it. Missing it is the least of my problems. Okay. All right. Let's see. That's actually worth the discussion. I feel US Optics has gone cheaper. Do you guys do anything with US Optics? Should I kind of go over that? You want to give it a shot?
The only ones I've dealt with are the TSO line, and those are the outsourced scopes. I don't know anything about the foundation lines.
Okay. All right. Then
I'll take it, man. Take the full screen. Brian and I both have to take a break.
All right. Come on, you're missing out the whole lecture. I'm so insulted. But I'll live. So US Optics is sort of a new company for all practical purposes. So it's not the same company that was in California, got purchased, moved to Montana, then they had a lawsuit or something, and then it ended up in, I believe, North Carolina. a sister company of Zero Delta. They've revamped the whole thing. It's not the same company as it was, and I wouldn't necessarily say it has gone cheaper, because the foundation scopes, or FDN scopes, are sort of a rebirth of the original US Optics designs, but in a more of a production type environment. They used to be just hand-built custom scopes. Now they're more in a production environment, and I have an FDN 17X that I really like. I like it to the point where I will add it to my list of recommendations, right? And that's not something I do lightly. The TS line are their Chinese manufactured scopes that are done with their reticles and QC'd in the United States. And I don't, yes, they're cheaper, but that's pretty much these days. If you want a more affordable product line so you reach more people, you have to go to an OEM. But here's the catch, right? If you have a US-made product line like US Optics does, going to Japan, you will basically be competing with your own US-made optics line. They needed to go lower than that in price to have substantial differentiation to reach a broader audience. So they went to China. And some companies go to China and do well, and some go to China and totally screw it up. Based on what I've seen so far, what US Optics did with their Chinese OEM scopes was a pretty good thing. They work well, they are reasonably supported. Customer service has improved by leaps and bounds when it's needed. It's not that frequent anymore. And at the same time, they're doing their US-made FDN line and also doing a pretty good job with it. So I think saying the US Optics has gone cheaper is not really very fair. I think it's probably better to say US Optics has diversified. They're doing what they've been doing, just better, and they added a less expensive OEM product line. I think that's a cleaner way of looking at it.
Yeah,
That's a
I
cute.
agree with that. I'm a US Optics dealer.
Okay.
They're pretty good to work with. Here's an FDN, and I will tell you that I have a lot of high-end scopes, as Ilya does, and this thing is up there. I mean, its turret is awesome. The glass is great. It tracks well. It does all the right things. And it's a really cool scope. It's got a cool, interesting reticle. This is a 1.8 by 10. So I think the problem that I have with US Optics is the production numbers of their foundation scope. I think if they were producing them, so they build them one-off. That's what they tell me, and they build them to order, I should say, and they usually have a 3 to 4 month wait. So I don't carry them because they kind of, they kind of are almost like a direct sales with those things a little bit. I feel like, anyways, when I've talked to Maggie over at US Optics, they're great to work with. I mean, one thing I tell you, I mean, they've helped me promote the new gun. They are interested in expanding. They're very flexible. But, you know, I think you don't see as many foundation scopes being reviewed, and because there's just not that many of them. But that's just my take on it. But this scope's amazing. Yeah.
So this is the FDN 17X. I'm actually about to publish my review on it. Maggie doesn't like me anymore, I think, because I take a very long time when it's a new company, and I'm basically, but just for the record, Maggie is lovely to work with. She's very, 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 very good. It's when I'm treating US Optics like a new company. I don't want, because there've been problems with the old company and the transitions and all that sort of crap, and I don't want all of that to impact US Optics as it is today. It's a completely new enterprise, and I like what I'm seeing with the new enterprise. The turret is good, the optical quality is good, everything works as it should. It's a nice scope. All right, let's see. Dr. Noblex scopes are still available in Europe, yes, but now all the new stuff is Noblex. It's no longer called Doctor. Mr. Edgun West, what's that city name again?
I think that was to Joe. He wants to know how to pronounce that Chinese city name.
Oh, yeah. You may have to write that down, Joe.
Yeah, I think it was Long Dong. I don't remember. I don't know a lot of the Chinese words.
Yeah,
I don't have all of them.
It's a tonal language. We can't pronounce it. I've spent a good amount of time in China for my day job.
I know
it's
their
different.
chicks are hot. Other than that, I don't have much.
Have you been to China lately? Well, the ones you see on TV are very hot, yes.
Yes.
Walking
But then
around.
everybody sees Texas, they think we all ride horses and have ranches, so.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
It was interesting. I used to go to Shanghai a lot, right? And the Chinese have gotten a lot tall over the years, but still, one day for half a day we got a chance to go for a walk, and I'm walking, and everybody's about this tall.
Yeah.
And I'm not that big a guy. I mean, it was interesting. All right. Anyhow, GTM. I'm starting the review process tomorrow for the Athlon Helos Gen 2 6-24. Super surprised at the improvements. Looking to compare it against the PA 2-10. You seem to be a fan so far. So as a general rule, comparing a 6-24 scope to 2-10 scope is probably a little bit misguided. When you compare scopes, try to match objective sizes and magnifications the best you can. Because they will be optimized differently, designed differently, reticle will be aimed at a different market. It's not really a very clean comparison.
Yeah.
I do like the 2-10 primary arms. The scope's really growing on me. There are a couple of things about the reticle I would fix. And I just lost another half of my audience because they have a rabbit following. Had some guy read me a new one for saying this is the best reticle design ever. I'm not qualified to talk about it. That was amusing.
Wow.
But it's generally it's a good reticle design. There's really one thing I would change, but there are not that many moderate magnification range rifle scopes out there, and the PA 2.5 to 10 is one of the better ones for the money right now. Helos is a really solid design, and Gen 2 looks to be a solid improvement. But I'm actually I requested from Athlon their 2-12 Helos, and I will compare that to the PA, and that's going to be a much more direct comparison because the objective lenses are very similar, magnification range is similar. It's going to be much cleaner. 6-24, I mean, that's sort of a different kind of thing. Thoughts, gentlemen?
No, I've got a couple of Athlons that are supposed to be coming, but they're out of scopes basically right now. So
Yeah.
There's no need having YouTube reviews when there's nothing in stock.
Yeah, the supply chain in China is still all screwed up. They don't have coronavirus anymore, right? But everything's shut down.
Yeah.
With the whole coronavirus. So I don't know if you guys. I had corona already, and then I had the vaccination, which was almost worse than corona. And my version of COVID was really rough. I was out for 3 weeks. It was horrible.
Wow.
Well,
no, I've been vaccinated. I know Brian called it at the SHOT Show.
Yeah. But anyhow, so in China, officially there are 3,500 people dead, but extra couple of million funeral urns have been used. So, go figure.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we have a USO comment. USO now is not the same as it was 10 years ago. The current Foundation series is nowhere near the quality of the scopes they made years ago. Well, it depends on what you're referring to years ago. So years ago, I stopped reviewing US optics scopes because I could not find two that were similar. I've looked at a bunch, and some looked like $50 crap, and some looked like $5,000 Schmidt & Benders. And for a guy like me who reviews stuff and makes recommendations, that basically makes it impossible, right? There was no consistency. The Foundation scopes now, after they finally said in North Carolina, they're coming out consistent. So I disagree with you on this one. Did you guys spend any time with the older US optics scopes?
I had a 10 power and it was incredible, but that's been 15 years ago.
Yeah. So I once had a chance to look at 10 power scopes, and 6 were incredible. And then there were the other 4.
I guess.
That's one of the problems with hand building stuff. Not everybody can pull it off. Edgun West, I like that little TS12 MAR reticle is awesome for filming. What is MAR reticle? Do you guys know?
That's the name of that reticle that they have with it. It's missing the top part above the mid.
Oh, okay, got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a nice little scope. I was very pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I saw those too. I like them. They're great.
Yeah.
I don't know what the shade is. US optics. I know I hear it all the time. Online, people, especially when I started carrying them, they but My experience with them is they stand behind their stuff. They're good to work with. They're, US-based company. Their foundation stuff, I disagree with that other comment. I vaguely remember one of the old ones, but I've had a couple foundation ones in my hand, and this one currently, amazing. Really.
Well, you have to keep in mind, there is foundation and there is FDN. They're not the same thing, actually.
Right.
So when they first did the redesign, they did this foundation thing, and that had some issues. They were trying to figure it out. Then they reworked it again, and the current thing called FDN is quite good, and it is consistent. No US Optics product line before I would ever refer to as consistent. All right, GTM. I called Athlon today, and the 1 to 10s won't be here until late June or May. I don't know what the heck is going on. 90 days late. Keep getting fed lines. It's not fed lines. 1 to 10 scopes are hard to build. So some people know, some don't. I do some consulting on the side for rifle scope companies, so quite a few. I don't consult for Athlon. I don't do anything for Athlon. I'm friendly with them. I don't consult for Athlon. 1 to 10 scopes, front focal plane, are really difficult to build well. And they're really difficult to build well in production. Okay. I consult for several people who either make them or are working on them. There are specifics to that erector ratio and some of the specifics of that core design that make it tricky to build. Combine it with the current supply chain issues in China, I'm not surprised it's delayed. That having been said, I know which OEM is making the Athlon 1 to 10, and I have pretty good confidence that once they nail it down, it should be good. But it may take a little time. I'm not surprised. Okay. Who would you recommend for buying March scopes that might do discounts? Honestly, I honestly don't know. Who was it? Long Range Supply? There was somebody who had some discounts on March scopes.
I think those are long gone.
The discounts you think are gone already, or the company's gone?
No, I think the discounts are gone.
Yeah. So Long Range Supply was pretty good. I think Bear Basin had good prices. Euro-Optic, then there's Euro-Optic and Optics Planet. Long Range Supply runs occasional discounts, so I would check with them, but I don't know. I mean, March scopes are built to order for the most part, so it's unless they're running a program of some sort, it's hard to find them discounted. Maybe you can look for a used one. They are really well-made scopes. Okay. As far as me comparing the Athlon to the PA, just for personal use, not for online commentary. Sorry for that confusion. No, that's no problem at all. I'm just sort of pointing out that it's when I'm trying to make sense of stuff, it needs to be apples to apples, even if I'm doing it for my own personal use. Okay. Have you spent much time with the Helios scopes, Joe? The first gen?
A little bit, but honestly, I just wasn't blown away by them.
Yeah, I didn't like the first gen Helios. The prototype Gen 2s looked very promising, but until production stuff gets here, I really don't know.
Yeah, I hadn't seen them, but no, the first gen, like I say, they were, I would just say average for the price.
Okay. You don't carry Athlon scopes, Brian, do you?
No, I do not know.
No. Oh, there we go. So he's just the MHR reticle. Yeah, that's actually the reticle I have in my TS12. It's a perfect competent reticle. If it just had that illuminated dot in the center, it would be perfect.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know when Holosun 508T, the bulletproof RMR copy, is coming out? So it's not an RMR copy. I don't know for sure when it's going to come out. Holosun, gets a lot of crap, but they make really nice red dots. Probably the best one for the money right now, close to it. I don't know for sure when it's going to be out. The Holosun that I like the most is the one with the ACSS reticle called the Vulcan reticle, that little chevron with a large circle. It's just brilliant. And it does fit an RMR footprint. I should have one here. Oh, there we go. I think it's this guy. Hold on. Yeah, there it is. Let me see which one it is. It's HS507C. This has been damn near bulletproof, and it's if I was going for a red dot sight and the RMR footprint, this would be it. Bar none, and at any price. They did a really good job with this guy. Do you do much with red dots, guys?
I the Delta line.
Okay. Yeah, they have some good Japanese red dots.
Yeah.
Kind of similar to like Romeo 1, Romeo 3, that line, I think.
Right.
Yeah. And somebody is fighting a losing battle with autocorrect. I think he's saying that the reticle on the TS12 disappears in low power. I agree with that. But, you know, as I said, it's I have this sort of general spiel with reticles, right? And one of the consulting things that I do for a lot of different companies, I help them with reticle designs. And when I first started doing this, I thought it was a fluke because it's not that complicated. Like, I could never really figure out why they would need me to help on the reticle design. And a few years later, here we still are, right? It's not rocket science, and yet I don't know why they can't figure it out. It's not difficult. It's really not difficult, but they can't. I don't know. I see this all the time. They make reticles that are useless on one or the other end of the magnification range.
I'll be right back. I'll be right back.
And why they do it this way or the other, I don't know. Makes no sense to me. But maybe I'm just an arrogant jackass. Who knows?
No, you're right.
About being an arrogant jackass, yeah.
No, about the reticle design, because the majority of the time, you know, guys will reach out to me and they'll tell me on the low end of the scope I couldn't see the reticle. No kidding, you picked a 3 to 60 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
First focal plane. On the low end, you're not going to be able to see it. And if you could on the high end, you would complain it's too thick.
Well,
you know,
you can actually work around it. There are ways to work around it.
Yeah.
And
like
the
illuminated dot is a perfect.
Illuminated dot
the perfect fit.
Is a perfect solution. There are ways to do this with the reticle as well without illumination. You just need to be slightly more adventurous. One of the things I found is that most of the marketing people in all these companies who do this, they don't really shoot. And they are incredibly risk averse. They'll look around and find some design that somebody else sells. They know it sells in reasonable quantities, and they'll move a couple of hash marks around to make it their own, and then they'll sell it. They're just too risk averse.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, it is what it is. Who am I to judge? They're the ones in the business of selling scopes. I just talk about them, right?
Right. Yeah, I'm with you. I'll sit on the sidelines. Y'all go ahead.
Yeah. All right. So GTM, I actually hated those Gen 1 Helos. The Gen 2 has turrets like the ETR, but with better knurling design. I almost can't see the differences in the glass of this versus the ETR 4.5 to 30, but parallax is stiff. Yeah, the Gen 2 Helos look to me like a much improved design, but until I test one thoroughly, I really don't know. It's one of those things. Prototypes is one thing, but looking at production scopes is different.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, where are we? All right, we're approaching the 3-hour mark. So, guys, I'm going to cut it off in about 20 minutes. So if you have questions, now is the time. Bring them on. While I still have Joe and Brian here holding them hostage for the most part. And you guys tell me what else you want to know. If there's anything about the Russian air guns or Russian scopes, we'll drag Brian back in front of the camera. He's out there somewhere.
Yeah. I can tell you one thing about the Edguns. A lot of guys that are interested in air guns, they love tinkering with them.
Mm-hmm.
They want to just dick with them day in, day out. They think that's fun. For me, it's not. I want something I can zero and go back out next week, next month, or whatever, and it still holds zero like a rimfire. And that's one thing, honestly, I think the Ed guns have a big advantage over stuff like the Day States and the FXs that are so overly engineered. And I mean, don't get me wrong, they're nice rifles, but there's 50 places for them to leak air. You know, there's so many places that are adjustable. With the Ed guns, you adjust the hammer spring and you go to work. You know, just zero it and just keep shooting it, which for me is a lot more fun. So I don't want something I got to mess with all day, every day.
I will tell you, Joe, I have a few air guns, not that many. I've never messed with a single one of them beyond mounting a scope, zeroing in and shooting. I've never adjusted the hammer spring. I wouldn't know where to find one. And it's a funny thing. I build all my ARs. I do a ton of gunsmithing on firearms. I got into air guns as practice for my firearms, right? And I shoot air guns quite a bit. And I just shoot them. I want the minimal amount for messing with them. I have FX Impact. It's got a bunch of things to adjust. I have no idea what they are. I mean, there's a menu somewhere I can figure it out. I have no freaking clue. I've got an Leica 2 that Brian hopefully has sent me by now, because if he hasn't, I'm going to fly to LA and beat him to death with a rifle stock or something. I'm going to put a scope on it. Just need to decide which one. Anyhow, I'm going to put a scope on it and go shoot this. Oh, that's what I'm going to put on it. This new Brownells MPO 1-8 that I just got.
Oh, that's
I'm going to put it. Yeah, I just got it today. I'm going to put it on a Leica 2 and ring it out that way. Yeah. Right. But air guns, I just shoot. I have FX Dreamline that's really good. I've got that Air Force Talon that needs a new valve, a new field valve. I got, and I haven't shot it yet. It's behind me. I don't want to grab it. I got the Air Force 50 cal.
Oh yeah.
The LSS.
Yeah, those are fun.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a blast with that.
Yeah, like I say, for a lot of guys, tinkering with an air gun is a lot of fun. For me, it's just not. And I went through so much, messing with so many different brands that you tweak this, you tweak that, you tweak this, you tweak that, and you go out the next day and it's still not holding zero. And it's like, man, screw this, And that's one of the things. Like I say, I've had a couple of Ed guns. As a matter of fact, before Brian was ever importing them, I actually bought one of his old guns, it would just, it was boring, accurate. Which for me, I'm at the age now, I love boring. I don't like drama, so
yeah. Oh, maybe I need to do more with that guns, but we'll see. I think Leica 2 is going to be a blast.
Yeah.
So there's a question here of whether there are any more prismatic optics coming out. Yes, there is a lot of development happening with prismatics, a little bit more from Chinese OEMs, but I think we will see more stuff. I'm seeing some interesting things. We'll see quite a bit more between 3 and 5 power. I can't tell you exactly what they are, but they'll be mostly in the $300 to $500 range, and they're becoming increasingly more competent. Whether we'll see any more of the oddball prismatics like the Dedal 6 power, the Stalker, that I can't tell you. But I have an idea what's coming from Chinese OEMs, and it's a further refinement of the stuff that we have. The world of prismatic scopes is changing and sort of dividing into small prism and large prism stuff. Large prism is a very wide field of view, things like the Dedal and all of those. And then there's a small prism stuff that's really getting designed now. They sacrifice a little bit of the field of view, but they're really small and light. That's the stuff like the Burris RT3 and a few others. And I see a lot of development with those, and I'm very curious to see where that's going to go. So next 3-4 years is going to really define that. There is a really clever 5 power prismatic coming out from another company that's not commonly viewed as a player, that's doing some really clever things. So we'll see. You love the Leshy too. Take it out of the box, load, shoot, and repeat. I plan to. Excuse me. In Russia, excuse me. In Russia, there is a superstition: if you sneezed on something, that means it was the truth, and that's why you sneezed. It was the truth. Put that gun down, please. You're trying to get me banned?
I don't think he can hear you.
Yeah, apparently not. Oh, airgun question. Why don't they make more side levers? Seems like a smarter design. Plenty of under levers, but very few side levers. No idea, Joe.
It's more expensive, and eventually the bolt action guns will go away. And it's just as far as the springers, the under levers are pretty much the most accurate because the barrel doesn't move. Everything stays intact. It's a lot like fallen block rifles. I mean, there's nobody that loves a Ruger #1 more than I do, but they are so finicky. I finally gave up on them. I mean, I love them to death, but all fallen blocks are like that. You take a bolt action, you don't have to worry about it. Nothing moves, and a lot of the under levers on springers are like that. The barrel action never moves. All you do is open the breech.
Mm-hmm.
So, they're just more accurate. I mean, I shoot in national bench rest, EBR, RMAC, and stuff like that. And if you have a springer and it's a break barrel, you really don't have a chance. And I mean, it's not like the guy can't do it, the gun can't do it.
How interesting. Yeah, I don't own any Springer air guns. I should probably pick one up. Now I'm curious. Okay. All right. Best daylight bright scope: Vortex Razor 1-6 or Delta Striker 1-6. In terms of bang for the buck, Delta Striker. But side to side with them, Razor is a little bit better. The eyepiece is a little bit better optimized, but you pay for it. It's more money. So that's pretty much it. Have you spent much time with the Razor? I know you like the Striker.
Yeah, I have, and for how much more it is, it's one of those things, diminishing returns. That's just my opinion. And a lot of guys are super huge fans of that Razor. For me, for the extra money, it's not worth it.
Yeah. Well, Razor became a big deal. It was the first. Striker didn't exist when Razor was creating this field, really.
Yeah.
But I looked at it carefully, and what happened is that the eyepiece on the Razor is different, so the edges are cleaner, the field of view is slightly flatter. Whether it's what the price difference to you, I mean, that's sort of a personal call.
Yeah.
But they're not identical scopes. All right, let's see. Can the Darth Lord smuggle us some imported SVDs, be a Han Solo with your Russian connections? Yeah. No. I am actually trying to get an SVD, but it's not so simple. So I have this romantic connection to the SVD for some reason, but I want one. I actually have some original Russian SVD ammo that SVD was designed for. I'm saving it for the day when I might get a Dragunov someday, but that day's not today, unfortunately. Have you ever shot one?
No.
They're really, really clever rifles. It has that long barrel and it's a very thin barrel. How do they get the accuracy they get? Because they're legitimately accurate DMR type guns, right? So they figured out the harmonics of that long barrel and they tuned the muzzle brake to compensate for that, so that the whip of the barrel is consistent.
Yeah,
it's very, 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 very clever design. All right, Mr. GTM is bowing out. Have a good night, fellas. Keep up the entertaining content. Always enjoyable. That's why I have Joe here.
Questions, man.
Thank you, sir. Good night. All right. Unless they got something else, I'll be wrapping it up in a few minutes. I really appreciate you sticking around so long, Joe. Always fun.
No problem, man. It's a pleasure, man. I love doing these with you.
Yeah. So it's and Brian is out there somewhere.
Yeah, probably
out in the wilderness.
Yeah, he's a dog person. just like me. It's thundering here, so I'm having to cradle Bella so that she's comforted.
Yeah.
So otherwise, I'm dead to this dog. But when it's raining and thundering, I'm gonna run to Daddy. Other than that, I'm running to Mama.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Run to Daddy when it's thundering.
Yeah, my kids are trying to petition my wife and I to get a dog, so we'll see how that goes. Yeah. I travel a lot for work, so I don't really have a vote here because it's going to be my wife having to take care of that creature, and me and the kids, And I make more, mess than any dog you can imagine. So.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we have some inside information that Brian had a customer show up.
Oh, okay. Well, you can't argue with that.
Yeah. You could have gotten a Hungarian SVD just recently, but there is all kinds of drama behind it. Yeah, I am somewhat familiar with the drama. I would get that one if it was available, but it's... there's still some sort of a mess there. Maybe something's going to come through. I'd get that one, no problem, but we'll see. Okay. All right, we are at 2 hours 52 minutes, so we're right against my self-imposed limit.
All right.
So you are, well, it's entirely up to you. I'm going to basically give it 8 more minutes and just hang out and see if any more questions come in. And then I'm going to hang up my gloves for today. So it's going to be really interesting to see. Let me know if you get your hands on any more of the Dedal scopes. And which one? I thought you were going to look at one other in some not so distant future. Which one was it?
I think Brian's sending me the, I want to say it's in that 5 to 25 range.
Okay.
I'm not sure. And, but, I don't know. I told him, I said, just whatever you get in, send it to me. I know he's wanting to send me the Lpvo to look at also. And here lately, a lot of the, I look at a lot of budget scopes on my channel. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the Lpvos that I've done, when you actually see them through the camera, you see what you're actually seeing. And I don't know. Some of them are disappointing. I'll put it like that.
Yeah, I'll go with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Mr. Pooper and Crutch says more gun videos. Does it mean I should watch more gun videos or make more gun videos? I'm not sure what to do with that. But I will point out that nobody was trying to figure out what I'm drinking. So
wait, I got it. Go ahead.
So what did you get?
I hate. Oh God, I'm gonna sound like such a dope. I'm gonna say Bacardi 151, which I know that's not right, but let's see it.
I have sipped that rum, but no, I'm way too much of a snob for that. You should know better than that.
All right.
Papa's Pilar. It's a really, really nice rum. Highly recommended.
Yeah,
if you're a rum drinker, I need to get you. This specific one is a custom. It's called the Marquesas blend. It's made custom for a particular shop in Southern California. Every time I go there, I pick up a bottle. So you can only get it there. This is from barrel number 13 of all things.
Yeah, I love the small batch type of bourbons where you can, individual barrels and stuff.
Yep.
That's something I was actually wanting to do today was go get some bourbon for this, but I just ran out of time.
No worries. Next, there is always a next video.
All right.
Okay. I am done drinking for today. Mr. Pooper and Crutch, you can make as many Rex comments as you'd like, but my liver can't handle it. What? We have this thing. He brings out T-Rex. It's another YouTuber that I find insufferable for many reasons. And he's been driving me into alcoholism that way. That's it. There is nothing left in the flask. It's empty. No more. I am officially done.
I'm totally out of beer. I mean, I was down to drinking Keystone Light, so that'll let you know. I was out of everything else.
Yeah, it's okay. Next time I'm in Texas, I need to get you a bottle of something nice to use during the next video.
All right.
Okay. All right. 255. Joe, thank you for joining. Brian, whenever, well, we'll chat. Yeah. Thanks for the information on the Edgun and on the Dedal optics. The introduction of a new optics brand is interesting. So stay tuned. I'm assuming probably, I'm done with the hunts. Probably toward the end of June, we should revisit this and talk more about Dedal optics. By that point, hopefully you and I will both have a little bit of a hands-on time with them, and we should revisit and see how they stack up.
Yeah, sounds great, man.
And if Brian,
having me again, man.
Yeah, if Brian is on a live cast with us, that means that we like him, and if not, that means that he's been beaten up so much privately he doesn't want to show his face.
Yeah, well, he's in California, so he's 2 hours behind me. So out there, I guess it's still business hours.
Yeah, it's 8 o'clock there.
Yeah, I'm fixing to take this sleepy pup and go put her in the bed somewhere.
All right. Good night, Joe. Thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Good night. Thanks again.
Good night, everyone. All right. Take care. All right, everyone. Thank you all for sticking around. Oh, okay, I've got one last question. I know Joe loves Arkin. What is the best deal going these days, in your opinion, Ilya? Oh, gosh. So I've never tested any Arkin scope, so I don't have any real opinions on that. Best deal varies. It really depends. For a while, it was the 1-6 striker. And now it is really hard to say. There are not too many really good deals right now, simply because the market is so crazy, everything getting purchased. I would say Brownell's MPO 3-18x50 for about $1,000 as a crossover precision scope is very, very good. I would explore that. I think that's very good. And good night, sir. All right, folks. I'm going to hang up my gloves for today. Thank you for sticking around. This will be a video on my channel. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. Or you can get a hold of me on my website. It basically darklordofoptics.com takes you there. The actual website is on Locals. It's a Locals community I'm looking to grow. Please check it out. There is some restricted comment only for supporters, and a lot of it is just openly available. And the best way to get a hold of me is through there. Thank you.